All right, ladies and gentlemen, how's everybody doing? It has been a great day at this end of Doppler's Gear Garage. I hope you're having a great day yourself. And first of all, do me a favor in the chat there. Let me know where it is that you are coming from this evening. And I'm here in the San Francisco Bay Area having a good old time. And we are back with more music and technology. Now, the interesting thing is I had a bunch of questions over the course of this past week, today. And so what I wanted to do was hop on and just kind of go, hey, you know what, let's pick up this train of thought from last week. Because obviously a lot of people are very interested in how we tie the music we make with the technology that is all around us, is inundating us, and in some ways occasionally overwhelms us. So the interesting thing about my day is that I have a new computer. And the neat thing about that is that it is... All right, ladies and gentlemen, how's everybody doing? No. You're going to be muted over there. There we go. Hey. Okay, first of all, hello to everybody on Facebook. Hello to everybody on YouTube. Great to see you. Do me a favor, again, just drop it in the comments. Let me know where you're coming from. If you got some questions, do me a favor, put a little question mark at the beginning of that so I can kind of catch it easily there. And I want to delve into your questions and answer them to the best of my ability. Now, as I was saying before I started playing back my own audio, and everything looks like it's streaming along nicely, which is great. It has been a very interesting day here. Basically, I spent the entire day, 12 hours, setting up my new computer, getting it to see my Apollo interface, installing the RAM, just going through a whole multitude of what could be deemed as frustrations, but not just one. It was a series of impediments that continued to roll out through the course of the day. And what was neat is that I get a chance to, first of all, hey, what's going on, everybody? Chris Stark, I always hope that you're going to be here when we talk about music and technology because it's awesome. First of all, hello, Sean. Hello, Reza. Hello, Dwayne. Great to see you. Thanks for saying hi. Let me hop over to YouTube there real quick and see if anybody is giving me a holler. Not yet, but that's okay. More to come where that is headed. Okay, so there are so many things, so many little pieces. What's going on, Arthur? Hello to Boston, Massachusetts. Are you studying music there by any chance? Chris, what's going on, dude? Good to see you. I know where you're coming from. You're sunny New Zealand. Awesome. All right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for joining me. Again, drop the questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of walk through kind of top to bottom the things that we're going to encounter as we engage this. And I want to talk about a couple of different facets. One is, as musicians, we're looking for ways to get our music out. Streaming is a great way to immediately connect with an audience, like we talked about last week. We now have the same platform that Joe Satriani and Steve Vai have to reach people directly. That's incredibly powerful. We've never really had that same opportunity. We have that same virtual venue, which means if we use it judiciously, we can engage some of those same people, because guess what? The people that tune in to watch Joe and Steve are the same people that we've gone to these camps with. The other part of this is that there is a money-making side of this. And last time I didn't really talk a lot about some of the ways that this can be used to make money. My guess is, hello, everybody. I'm going to stay focused here, but hi there in the chat. Many of us teach guitar. And so every Saturday I teach a very long teaching day. I'm very fortunate. People have been really just great through this whole pandemic thing, incredibly loyal, showing up every week. And the great thing about teaching is that it's kind of like training for live streaming, because basically it's me and a camera and a guitar, and it's somebody that I'm wanting to engage in some way, that I'm delivering some sort of service, right? So the idea is Zoom has become my main point of contact to that. And as we continue to move forward, I think more and more of us are going to realize, hey, we used to teach in some back room at a store, and we, had to shell out X amount of dollars for the privilege to walk into the store, have them refer students to us, which is a big deal, and then be able to go back and teach. Now, I will say a couple of things, and I'm going to hit the pause button right there. If you've ever had a doctor write a prescription for you, and I'm not talking about a happy prescription, I'm talking about a prescription, you notice their handwriting is usually virtually illegible. So many doctors are completely incapable of actually running their own practice, which is why you see in the States, at least, more and more of these practice groups, because they come together, they find somebody that does the admin and all of that stuff. So not everybody is going to be great as a music educator at doing their admin. Hey, what's going on, Tom? So I would love it if anybody that's here, Darren, hey, what's going on? Isaac, hey, what's going on, dude? Good to see you. If any of you make some or all of your living from teaching guitar or bass or some sort of thing, do me a favor, give me a holler, give me a shout out there on the chat so I kind of know if that's part of your revenue stream, because I want to delve deeper into that. Zoom for me ended up replacing Skype, which ironically, since Skype kind of used to be really bad and Zoom kind of took the market, Skype's gotten a lot better. Last time I checked in on Skype, I was like, you know what, this is a much better experience than it used to be. The problem with Skype, if you're a music educator, is every so often you log on to Skype for your first lesson, and it just like seems to have forgotten all your contacts. They completely redesigned the interface, and you spend 15 minutes trying to get back to where you were the last time you exited the program. I don't think that's ever going to change. So that gets us into what I almost call today's show, which is like Plan B. Kind of the moral of the story of all of this is like, if we don't have a Plan B, we may be spending a lot of time kind of waiting for Plan A to happen. And that, if I were to be completely honest with you, the 15-year-old Doug Doppler that started studying with the unknown at the time, Joe Satriani, had a very different idea of what I might be doing today. Now, the good news is that I love what I get a chance to do today. Even on days like this where I basically am in computer hell basically the entire day, none of my applications want to load, doesn't want to see my audio interface, and literally I'm counting the seconds. I'm like, it's 6:01. That's awesome. But the idea is we're all on this journey together. So again, if you're doing any of this, Carlos Hernandez, what's going on, Loscar? Scott, what's happening? There we go. Zoom is safer for the students. Thank you very much, Scott. What's going on? So the deal is, and I'm going to do this thing invariably as soon as I make it such that I can. None of my applications want to load. Doesn't shut up. As soon as you make it so you can see the full chat, it unmutes Facebook. Look at all those comments. So give me a minute to just kind of finish the preamble, and then I'm going to kind of poke through these things. So here's the thing. Again, if you're using the web to teach, hit me with some specific questions. Because one of the things that I've really enjoyed a lot is having the ability to, let me just make sure. I want to see my audio interface. Stop. And literally, there are little annoyances, but we soldier through. So the thing is this, again, if you're using the technology to teach remotely, let me know and hit me with some specific questions. The other thing is that one of the things that people are asking me a lot about is kind of getting into recording. And that is one of those things that's just like, where do you start? And I am absolutely positive that my hombre, Andrew Bonica, and I are going to make a series of kind of from the ground up, we already built it for you, tracks that you can kind of reverse engineer. And so I actually have the brand new version of PreSonus's Studio One version 5, I think is where it's at. And it actually looks like they've got some amazing live streaming tools built into there, which is a big deal. I'm a Pro Tools user for 10 plus years. It was part of why I got hired to be a session player on Guitar Hero. And again, now as we're talking about the recording side, and not big noting, we're talking about technology and music. One of the prerequisites for getting hired for Guitar Hero was I had to be able to engineer my own sessions. And so, it meant that when they got my tracks, export session data, I think was the call, or export session was basically what you would do is you finish everything that you'd done. You would basically take wherever all the bazillion punches were, and then you would basically, go to the end of the piece of audio, and then it's the C word. Basically, you're basically taking all the audio and you heal all the seams afterwards, so it becomes one piece of audio. We're going to come back to that in a semi-moment. No, we're not. I'm actually going to go there. I'm going to take a little baby rabbit trail there, because I think one of the things we're going to increasingly be doing as we're creating music and sharing it is we're going to be exchanging files. And that whole kind of, I'm taking the song data and I'm pulling it out and I'm sending it somewhere. Let's say, for example, you have one continuous piece of audio, and then you punch in this one little spot. Now you have 3 pieces of audio. Even if you put a little crossfade at kind of the 2 little spots where you punched in and punched out, your computer still sees that as 3 different pieces of audio. So there we go, consolidate region. So you go to the very end of the track and you make sure you go from beyond the last piece of audio on that track, and you go all the way to bar 1, beat 1, and then you hit consolidate audio. And what that does is it gives you one continuous piece of audio. And by taking it all the way to bar 1, beat 1, if somebody gets all those audio files, they'll all line up. Doesn't matter what DAW they're working in. Yes, you want to be conscious of, am I at 48K? Am I at 24-bit? But so long as that's mapped out in advance, they import that out. And actually Pro Tools will convert that anyway. But then it'll all line up. If you don't do that, all of a sudden, if you can imagine you gave somebody your favorite glass and it got broken into 3 pieces by the time FedEx is done getting it to them, and they end up with this glass in 3 pieces, then they're like, how does this go together? You can put it together, but it's time consuming. But imagine 12 glasses that have been broken into a bunch of pieces. The idea is you just consolidate all those tracks, and basically what you can do is you can select all the tracks and then do kind of a consolidation across all of that. And it won't consolidate them into one. It'll consolidate each one of the tracks. And those are effectively what we would call stems. And so what's neat about Studio One that I saw that I was kind of like, oh, this is really cool, is they are thinking increasingly about how we prepare audio for streaming. So I'm going to take another little bit of a turn here, and then I'm going to, oh, there we go. Hey, I'm going to take a little turn here, and it always seems like, and I want to have a little preamble of the preamble here. First of all, I play guitar at church, but I'm not like one of those, oh, dude, you got to, that's not me. That's not my vibe. So when I mention something having to do with that, I'm mentioning it because of the value of the experience. So let's get that out of the way. All right. So one of the things that at Worship Musician Magazine, I wrote this big article basically about last week's show, because I felt guilty that I'm spending so much time pouring into the people that I'm connecting with about this thing that I'm so passionate about. So in the process of that, this whole week is all the stuff. There's been some interactions with Neutrik, who has all these great connectors. There's this whole thing, PoE, and that's power over Ethernet. And interestingly enough, I've got a TIAC streaming box that's here for review, and that you're able to PoE it, powered over Ethernet. And so, there's this whole new generation of things that are getting ready to happen. Chances are, and again, kind of now gently dovetailing from the music side into the streaming and technology side, I think it's highly probable, and this is one of the things that's really interesting about the House of Worship, is first of all, many of these churches, there are people playing live, quote unquote, streaming every week. And some of them are actually together in the same room making music at the same time, which is really cool. It's nice to see that somewhere people are doing that socially distanced. And if anybody's there, socially distanced. Just saying. All right, so the deal is this whole PoE thing, I was like, what the heck is PoE? And so the neat thing is, because I get a chance to hang out with you guys, I'm going, what is this? I need to understand this. So basically, when I saw a press release come in yesterday from the Neutrik, the company, the PR company that represents them, I was like, oh, what is this? Is the second time, and they're talking about supporting a particular protocol, PoE, with a particular connector. I'm like, okay, I need to be paying attention to this. And so the long-winded explanation of this is that there is a protocol called Dante, and it's basically networked audio, but it also is able to support video. And I will say this, is that in the next 5 years, it's very highly probable that, oh, I've got a shadow back there. What's happening with my green screen? Okay, it's highly probable that we're going to have one cable that looks an awful lot like this. That basically everything's, I think you could run either 128 or 256 channels of audio on one cable. That's just nuts. And they rolled out a video spec. So imagine, you've got 10 cameras around your room. This other thing that is now kind of a buzz thing that I'm hearing about, NDI, which I'm not going to go into until I know a lot more about it, but the baby version, fine, you tempted me, is that, traditionally you've got all, NDI, as I understand it, quote unquote, as I understand it in this moment, is actually about having to be able to bring in networked, at least its origin, starts with bringing in networked video. And my guess, operative word guess, is that one of the things is that SDI is another spec of running video from one end of a building to another. And HDMI, I think, is only supposed to go up to 50 feet. And then you start getting some degradation. So the idea of potentially using an HDMI converter to bring it into SDI allows you to do the same thing that you can do with like a radial, the remote guy, TX and DX. I'm going to forget the name of the little yellow boxes. But in case you're not familiar with those, basically Radial has created a system where if you want to have your guitar amp in some far distant place so you can crank it up, or like the amp box that's over there, and I don't want to have a slew of guitar cable going back, it basically takes your instrument level guitar cable and basically puts it into a balanced XLR signal that runs back and forth along the runs. It's very, very cool. Actually, I should say it goes in one direction, and then you mic it up, and then you have another XLR cable coming back with the microphone signal. And so the point being is that effectively you're kind of doing the same thing as, if you will, synonymously, or if you will, kind of taking a run that you need to extend from one place to another. The other thing that you're seeing NDI show up in a lot of places is in these apps. And so I've got my little Helix here, and I've been doing some training for a certain manufacturer that is going to go live, but only to actually, I can't even say anymore. But the point being is I kind of created hang on. Come here, you little bugger. Oh, no. Be nice. Nope, not going to happen. Okay. No, hang on. Just one sec. Let's see if I can cause some trouble here. There we go. This is the Helix Cam. And what's neat about this puppy is this is from my friends at, here we go, Triad Orbit. And so this guy, hopefully not about to drop my phone, sits over the top of the Helix, which is really incredibly cool. And so you can basically, using this NDI protocol, which you can either connect, generally it wants to be connected, and this time natively, as I understand, wants to be over the Wi-Fi network for it to show up. As I tested it today, the latency was terrible. But one of the other things you can do is Elgato's got an app that's free, but you need to use a cable on that. And needless to say, they've got them on Amazon. Which gets me to this other subject that we had last week, which was this list of stuff that Andrew and I are working on. On Friday, one of the calls that I've got is with my buddy Gary over at Audio Technica. And Audio-Technica is a company that I've worked for and worked with for many, many years. Just about, by the way, if you're looking for a first vocal mic for your studio, basically the 40 series mics, like a 4040, you can't go wrong. It's pretty much, by the time everybody kind of goes, okay, I've had an SM58, which is a great mic, but I want to get something that's a little bit more studio. The 4040 is a great mic, and it's pretty much everybody's kind of first. All right, I'm going to get a studio mic that matters, right? I'm also a big fan of the Mini K47. There we go. From my buddies at Roswell Pro Audio. That's my main studio mic for guitar stuff, and they've been kind enough to basically endorse my studio here. And that's a phenomenal, amazing microphone. So again, we will be putting together the gear list. All right. So the point being is that there are a couple of things about this device. In case you didn't know, and if you got your iPhone in front of you, I'm just going to walk you through this because hang on. Let's see. Hang on. Let's see how much trouble I can cause. No, wrong end. Okay, I can't do that. Bummer. Okay. No. Okay, so here's the deal, is most of these phones now are 4K. And so if you actually go into your settings and you go into your camera, and where the heck is that puppy? Camera. And then you go into basically record video, you're going to see basically you've got all these settings, including 4K at 24 FPS, frames per second, by the way, 4K at 30 frames per second, which is what I go for, and 4K at 60 frames per second. I hang out at 30. That's what I stream at, and it is groovy. So to have that type of quality on your phone is absolutely nuts. The folks at Shure make this device called the, and it will be on the list, but the MV88 Plus, and it's basically got a little Manfrotto mini tripod, but then it's also got a great mic. It absolutely sounds great, and there's an audio app that comes with it. The video app, the audio app, phenomenal, and there's a bunch of different mic patterns you can set up. It is sensational. So just getting back to the beginning of streaming, if you are able to just kind of go, hey, if you've got a fast internet connection, your phone can work. Now, here's the deal. I generally say, if at all possible, do not use Wi-Fi to stream. What you can try is just see kind of what you're getting from your service provider. So I don't know. Blonica, tech support. Andrew, can you be so kind as to let me know if, well, I guess I'm a total moron. We're going to find out if speedtest.net, well, it doesn't work if you spell it wrong. Test. So speed, in case you didn't know, and you want to test your internet connection, you go to speedtest.net, and it is absolutely phenomenal because it will allow you to take a nice little speed test. Absolutely. It's connecting. So let's see what we've got here. So what I'm looking for is not my down, which is actually I'm getting fluctuating somewhere between 10 and 11. What I'm looking for is the up, and ideally you want about 10 megabits per second. And that's kind of the thing. But here's the deal. Wow, it didn't even give me an up speed. That's totally bizarre. Okay. Well, they're not thinking that you're pushing. If you're getting 17 down, you're probably getting half-ish of that. First of all, hello to everybody that joined. Okay. Hey, crossfade. Consolidate. There we go. Look at all of this. First of all, thanks to everybody that's hanging out. Really nice to be able to spend the night with you. That was awkward. Hang out, spending the evening with you. Much better. Okay. So, hey, what's going on, Chris Lewis? Purveyor of many pedals. Okay, that's awesome. All right, so I would love it if anybody... that's right, Andrew, lamenting the fact you can't stream to YouTube directly until you have 1,000 subscribers. And yeah. Rich Rankin, what's going on, dude? Hey. Okay, well, first of all, hello. What's going on, Ramiro? Jim, hey. All right, so let me not get lost in the chat here, but I will poke in on YouTube for just a quick second and see if there's anybody that has commented. Hey, there we go. What's going on, Andrew? All right, so here's the deal. Let me go back up here and see if there are any questions, because I think I preambled pretty well there. Tim McKee, I've got your cabinet, dude. Just saying. I have many people's cabinets, actually. Peter Davidek, look at all these folks. Hey, hi. Okay, so there we go. Thanks. Appreciate that, Rich. All right. Are there any questions? No. Paul, what's going on, man? Mike's choice makes such a big difference. Paul Shedden from Mission Engineering. And very soon we're going to have our friends from Mission hanging out for one of two really cool shows. One either called Control Freaks. And the idea is all these cool, groovy controllers and things we can do. But the other thing that I think we're going to do first is called Groovy Gadgets. And they make power supplies that you can now power with your basically the same battery cell that you use to recharge your iPhone, which is rather crazy, cool, and geeky. Russell, what's happening here? All right, I Drew, hello. Richard, hello. That was the setup. All instruments on the stage. One network cable back to the board. There we go. Hey, Andrew. Tim, that's hilarious. Chuck, what's going on? Studio One, amazing. Just switch from Logic. There we go. All right. So, you know what? You guys can also do, rather just, so you seem to be bashful about asking questions. You know, let me just be really clear. There is no question you can ask that's too dumb. Like, honestly, I am hoping that somebody's going to ask what's a DAW? You know, what's an interface? As a matter of fact, so DAW is one of the acronyms, and then one of the other things that Andrew and I have been doing this Helix project. We put together a glossary of terms. So once we're kind of done with the gear list for kind of the streaming stuff, we will put together a glossary of terms. It's actually kind of something I've been kind of collecting in the background. DAW is an acronym for Digital Audio Workstation. And traditionally that kind of implies that it's some sort of software-y thing that you traditionally need some sort of interface to interface your musical instrument or microphone or whatever transducer or noisemaker you're using. There we go. Awesome. Into that digital audio workstation. And so there are a number of applications. There are really, probably if you sat down and listened to things that were mixed by people who know what they're doing in each one of those applications, you would never be able to tell the difference. So, so there are people that love Reaper, there are people that love Pro Tools, Logic, there are people that are switching Studio One. Studio One version 5 look like I'm fortunate enough to be on the PR list for like everything, so I'm constantly like mornings are like, it's this constant checking everything out. And again, because so much of what we're looking at is around streaming and this technology thing, the new trend that we're going to see is this. And again, this is there's a church called Bethel that is up in Redding, California, and they're huge. They play these giant festivals and they do these kind of basically stadium tours, and their live streaming setup is nuts. And so they basically are mixing their broadcast audio in Pro Tools. So the interesting thing is that relates to us is we have the performance / talking part of this thing, obviously pointing towards the shotgun that you can't see. But then there's kind of the whole kind of broadcast side of it is how are we producing this? Now, I will take a moment and I will critique the good, the bad, and the ugly of kind of if I were to actually just kind of go, all right, what's going on here? All right, first of all, I've got specks of stuff on my shirt. The green screen's not bad. Traditionally, green screen has been totally cheeseball. And the application I'm using here is called Ecamm Live. And I actually have my own affiliate link, which I'll put down in the chat in a little bit. I absolutely love this application. And so the thing is, as a music educator, being able to, and we'll get to that very soon, we're going to do like this mode intensive, mode changing, note calling out, the note pong, crazy stuff that I do with my students because I love diatonic music, but I love progressions that change modes over a common root, also known as the pitch axis. I digress, but the point being is that as a presentation format, being able to put a giant JP2C behind me, be able to do picture-in-picture stuff, and just all the freedom that allows is really powerful. What I've got is I've got the shotgun up here. The interesting thing about my new Mac, and thank you Andrew Bonica once again comes through. Hear that? So the little MacBook Pro that I had there, as soon as you had a bunch of streaming stuff going on, the fan would come on. There is a fan in my new iMac that's better. And what I tried to do and just didn't have the time to do was just put a very light gate on this, such that when I'm, here, let me imitate the gate here. Okay, for those of you who do not know what a gate is, I'm going to imitate what a gate actually sounds like. So when I'm done talking, and then I start to talk like that, you don't hear that. So basically what a shotgun microphone, what's really great about it is this kind of long, this is not a shotgun microphone obviously, but it looks remotely like this, and it's kind of this cylindrical microphone that is very unidirectional. So you kind of point it towards whatever, and if you take a listen, I'm getting a little bit better over here versus when I'm down here. But the thing about the shotgun is you can point it away from noisy things. So basically what I've tried to do is offset it from my much beloved new iMac that took the majority of the day to configure. So in the midst of this, I've stumbled into the technology side of the computer part of this. I bought a refurbished 2019, there is a 2017, I think, and 2019 iMac. I went for the 2019. It's a 27-inch. I bought two 32 gigabyte cards for it. And I have an absurd amount of RAM. What's really cool is that I am able in one of my applications to be able to see how much RAM I'm actually using in real time, which is pretty cool. There we go. That's the one I'm looking for. No, it's not. No. Come back. There we go. I am using, oh, wow. Okay. It's telling me that I have 5 gigabytes free, which is interesting. Now, what that means in Mac talk for the most part is that, as I understand what happens is a computer likes to grab a hold of the RAM, and once you're done with an application, it lets go of it. Right now I've got the console application. Oh, I didn't quite finish with the audio side of things. Let me... DAW, audio interface. Most of the content creators that I know are using a universal audio interface. Last time I talked about the Scarlett, and I think I went back and did some research, and again, we will put together a list, not just a list of gear, but a list of gear that will have some very specific comments about why those pieces of gear were chosen. One of the things that I'm really big on is the idea of being able to use light pipe, which is, remember, the old DVD player that kind of had that little, very light little cable that had a little red laser through it. Allows you to run 8 channels of digital audio from a smaller audio interface. I did this the last time. Where's my little baby UA? But it allows you to get a smaller audio interface, but then you can expand it with something like the Octapre Mark II Dynamic, or I think maybe it's the Mark III Dynamic from Focusrite, which I've now moved into my upstairs studio. In any case, the audio interface is an important part of the equation because it is kind of how you get into your DAW, right? Once you're in the DAW, they kind of all sound the same. The thing about your audio interface is that generally speaking, most of them give you the ability, you're kind of monitoring the audio coming off the computer to the interface, and you're kind of hearing what's hitting the interface at the same time. That's how they kind of get around the latency. Universal Audio, on the other hand, has a fancier system called console. And it's basically like the concept that you've got a big mixing console and you can load the virtual equivalent of hardware on that console and have it kind of work like a traditional analog console. And the idea is, because that's being powered by the interface, it's allowing you to have these great sounding plugins and have the opportunity to track with them with next to no latency. By the way, latency is actually I think I have some latency because I didn't have a chance to set the offset between my vocal mic and the audio offset that I can set in the Ecamm Live. But basically, it's you play and then there's this little bit of a pause. And that's one of the things that constantly we're dealing with in the recording environment. And basically the solution that's happened is the idea is the ability to monitor off of your audio interface as opposed to monitoring off of the computer. And basically, kind of the dream was 10 years ago, the way you traditionally worked was you had your main computer, you souped it up with RAM, you had multiple drives, you had all your audio being recorded to one drive that was not your system drive. All your applications were on one drive, and if there were any loops or any samples, those were on another drive. And so the idea was you were trying to make it easier for your computer to manage those resources. And the thought then, at least that I had, the fantasy was, oh, well, when the computers get fast enough, we can do all this stuff on one computer. What's happened is, as the computers have gotten faster, they've made the things that they try and get the computers to do to become more and more sophisticated. So the idea of just being able to monitor off of what you're recording to the hard drive in real time is basically a fantasy. And so there are these kind of band-aids that work pretty well as a potential solution. So the great thing about the Universal Audio stuff is that it acts like this. It's this little thin layer, but it has the ability to basically either track with the sound of, or quote unquote, print the sound of any of your favorite plugins, including stuff like Tube Screamer or something, a virtual Tube Screamer, and there's a Pete Thorne amp, PT100, and some Marshall stuff, and then the Brainworks stuff is on there, and by the way, the SVT is awesome, as is the B15A and B15N, which is my favorite. If you're not looking for something super heavy, it's the greatest kind of in the groove bass amp ever, and that model is awesome. All right, let me poke in here and see if there are any question marks here, because I've been rambling without totally losing my mind. There we go, Andrew. SDI is like Maddie for cameras. Thank you very much. I love this guy. All right. Hello to everybody. All right, hang on. So question mark. Elgato. Oh, okay. So, thank you, Tom. Okay, so the question was, and this time I will read the question from beginning to end. Question: Elgato Camlink 4K is impossible to get now for less than $120? Question mark. In my humble opinion, after all the market piracy of like, I'm going to get a hold of some of these and you're going to pay a bounty to get them, I actually don't think the Elgato 4K Camlink is the one to get. The 60S Plus is what you're actually watching me on now. And so I got that at Best Buy for $200 all in. I even had, I think I mentioned this, but I didn't have it hooked up last week, but like, curbside delivery, I must admit, it's almost as a spoiled a feeling as Amazon, who they just kind of bring the stuff and drop it in your front yard. It's just kind of like, ooh, I must admit I'm getting lazy and enjoying being pampered. So the thing about the 60S Plus, not the 60S, but the Plus, is it basically it's 4K in, and I think it's 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames per second on the backside, and the Camlink I think is 30, and so it's a higher grade card. It's basically a little bit more money. And right out of the box, it works great. Now, one of the things that I've been experimenting with, that I've got to do some speed tests on, is these cheap little converters. I think I got this one, HDMI video capture. I got it on, I think this one, there are two different ones that I tried. One that was a HD 1920 by 1080, and then coming out on USB 2 at 1920 by 1080. The other one was 4K and coming out at 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames per second. And this one came out at 30 frames per second, both of which came out at USB 2. And I think I read the other day that the spec of USB 3 is 10 times faster than USB 2. And again, our glossary is going to kind of talk about some of this stuff. The other thing that we're going to be doing is defining, I'm looking over there, you can't see them, but I'm a cable labeling freak. Like, give me a label machine, and I'm like, oh, let me label. And like, I have a certain number of spaces, and then those spaces allow me to slice right in between. So everything gets a label. And the reason that's important is I have like 5 million cables, and so they get put into different bag types. Now, one of the things that honestly, this whole micro USB, mini USB, USB-A, USB-C, USB 3, these different connectors, they actually all have their place. And then there's DisplayPort. Then there is HDMI. There's mini HDMI in case you've got some sort of mirrorless, DSLR sort of dealie. There's all these flipping cables, and I pretty much have one or more of each of them, and I keep buying them because I have some new need that I invent in the midst of connecting all the stuff together. Now, one of the ones that I think you're going to want to know about is the USB-C to HDMI, and why that's particularly valuable. And I had a hold of one there. What happens? Is that the same cable? I know better than to start pulling cables when I'm in the middle of something like this. Yeah, no. Okay. No, I know better. No. Just don't. So the idea is I got these very, very cool cables, and so what's neat about it is without having to spend like the $200 or $300, whatever it was that I spent on the system that allowed me to take my old iMac and have two outputs that went to two additional monitors. Which one of the things about that type of system, it basically creates your main monitor and then there's one extra wide monitor that is split basically in two, so you have to start pulling stuff on either side, which is kind of fine, but it works, and that's, I like it when it works. But basically what you can do now is with one of these USB-C to HDMI adapters, and it's a $10 cable, you just plug in another HDMI monitor. And so, it just basically what I did this afternoon was and there it goes. It's really crazy what you can do with these different things. But one of the things about these cables, you just want to be forewarned. And again, we'll make a list of kind of the cables and what the ends are, what the applications are, and a couple of suggestions around, hey, these are the ones that we've had good luck with. But some of the cables are one-directional, unidirectional, which means that if you kind of, it's got this end and it's got that end. Like, there's a couple of times I almost bought the wrong cable, and I was like, wait a second. Oh, it's unidirectional, which means I'm needing the opposite termination. So just saying, just be careful. Generally, the Amazon stuff is really good. I've had really good luck with their Cable Matters, I think is what it is. So getting back to your question, hey, Teddy, sorry you had to run. Always a pleasure, my friend. All right, so getting back to your question about the Cam Link, I have been patiently waiting to buy Cam Link, and now I may not. The interesting thing was, since I started looking for the 60S Plus, they, at least as of yesterday, and this is it's kind of like pedals. You're like, well, I could use another tube screamer. It's like, well, maybe I should just get another second Cam Link 60S Plus because, I might need it. So the thing is they've got them at B&H, which is kind of the place that I do most of my shopping other than Amazon. So in any case, that would be my suggestion. It's a little bit bigger. And so, if you're looking for something that's, it's literally just going to fit in the back of your computer, the Cam Link 4K is perhaps the way to go. But they sell for $129 and everybody's just jacked the price up. It's really totally not cool. All right, looking for questions. Google Chrome on Catalina. It will grab all your RAM. Thank you, Tom. So it would appear. Actually, the great thing is I should have system. There we go. Activity monitor. What are you telling me? Okay. Okay. So what's neat about this? So, we're there. One of the things you want to be really, really, really conscious of as you stream is kind of where you're at in terms of the amount of memory you've got, both in your machine, in terms of RAM, and also how much physical memory you've got in your computer. I am a virtual pack rat, so it means that I've just got a ton of stuff that's on my computer, and so part of what I spent last night doing and pairing my old iMac and my new one today and transferring files over is like I spent 3 hours last night sending a bunch of stuff up to Dropbox that I didn't need. And generally, let's talk production for a moment because we're there. So the thing about, traditionally when I do a project, I'll put it in a master folder. And inside that master folder, I'll put the brand and then the name of the piece of gear, and then I'll use mixed case to do that. And at the end, all in caps, I'll put one of the folders will be capital, all uppercase images. Another one will be video. The other one, you guessed it, was audio. And generally, that allows me to kind of see where things are at. The other thing is it gives me an easy way in Dropbox after the fact to just go up to, as I manage my syncing preferences, to just unsync the video folder. So it basically, it takes it off. It no longer mirrors it on the local drive. And so it enables you to just kind of vamoose it up to the cloud. The challenge that I've got these days is that I'm pretty much doing everything in 4K, including, let's see, you won't be able to see it on Facebook. Oh, my little shadow is back. Okay. But on YouTube, the tube of you, I should be at, there we go. I am streaming in 4K. So, and it also, there we go, which, it's pretty darn cool to be able to observe. Come on. There we go. Start playing. Yep. And hopefully the audio won't start running. And boom. Any questions going on? Mike Rand, I know that amp. Hello in Granada Hills there. I played the Canyon Club. Lovely venue. Don't know when you messaged that. In any case, being able to stream at 4K is a nice benefit, and it just means that you have maximum definition. The idea, is that as musicians, this is kind of one of the things that I really wanted to do early on as I started working in this format, coming over from doing traditional video. I was like, well, I don't want my audio to suck. I don't want my video to suck, and I don't want my audio and my video to be out of sync, which they actually are a little bit tonight. One of the ways you test and fix this is you do this, hopefully not too loud. And then what you do is you record that. One of the neat things about Ecamm Live is it's got a record function. And then what you can do is you can bring that into something like Premiere, which is what I work in. And then you can do the clap, and you can then listen to the sound. And then basically what you do is you unlink the audio and the video, and then you start offsetting that and see how far the offset actually needs to be. And then you can adjust that as you need to. So that's a cute little trick. It's not really. Here's the deal. There's 5 million little tricks that kind of like, this is, if you're feeling, just say a tad bit overwhelmed, and, some days like today, maybe a tad bit frustrated, you have to understand that it's going to be like that. And for those of us that have played music, we're kind of used to this kind of, it's groovy, it's flowing, it's all of that. Technology doesn't really have that vibe. But once you kind of get over the initial kind of like, it seems to be working, important caveat. I think John Coonaberry was like, for the longest time, was like on Pro Tools 8 or Pro Tools 9. When it's working, set it and forget it. Just leave it, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm generally extremely cautious about doing updates. The only thing that I will jump in on is the Line 6 stuff. One, because I've spent some time getting to know the development team there, and I may or may not be somebody that's worked with them on beta stuff. I can neither confirm nor deny that. But I know those guys, they generally don't put stuff out unless they've tested the daylights out of it. But the other thing is that, not everybody uses the software the same way. And sometimes marketing, quote unquote marketing, just is like, and I don't mean that about Line 6, I mean it about any company. They're just like, got to get it out, got to get it out. Got to get it out before, this quarter ends or this week ends or by the end of the day. And so sometimes stuff doesn't get tested as it needs to be. So don't get anxious about updating stuff. And as I'm on Catalina now, and I had to do a bunch of security related things inside my preferences to get my UA stuff to work. I've never had that happen in UA, and I get and appreciate the fact that maybe the folks at Apple want to keep me safe and they want to make sure that, you're not getting somehow maliciously attacked from inside the system. But holy cow, there was a lot of hoop jumping. And, if you're used to upgrading, so this is my third iMac, so I've done this process already. You just kind of connect them together. You transfer the information, and, it's generally a pretty fast process. This time it took a bunch of time. That is to say, be conscious that, you don't have to upgrade. If it's working for you and you like the way it's working, and also, try and avoid forced upgrades. And, Microsoft is famous about that. They're just, and, they just message me to death. And sometimes you can get the messages to stop, and sometimes they just won't. All right. Good. Tony Lybrand, what's going on, my man? All right. Andy Aladort. Hello. My brother from another mother. Dude. Chris Stark, right. You do some tech there too. The interesting thing is like I'm on day one. So once I kind of figured out, kind of all of this stuff, enough to get it working, generally speaking, once it's working, as long as you don't do some crazy upgrade, it continues to work. So Richard, the 60S Plus does not require external power. It's totally plug and play, no driver. I literally plugged it in and here we are. It was one of the few things that I just plugged it in and it worked out of the box today. And I love it. It's really, really, really good. Great question. So this is from Griffin Gaines. Most software packages have a variety of mics, cabinets, heads built in for sound sculpting. In your opinion, is there one mic you can use for both recording guitar and voice direct into an interface? Can one do a decent job for both? Yes, the Roswell Pro Audio Mini K47 is just exactly that. And there was a kid that I used to teach named Dave Rude, who now plays in Tesla, and they were doing some recording, and they were being produced by Phil Collin, and they somehow got a hold of the Mini K47, and Phil just flipped when he heard this mic because it's kind of, in my experience, the only mic that you can kind of march around the studio and point in front of just about everything. There's a video that I did, Roswell Audio Mini K47. Hold on. Doppler, English. Roswell. Oh, hang on. How about tagging them, you moron? Roswell. not Ross, Valerie, Roswell. There we go. Mini K47. I love that microphone. It is awesome. And again, that is the $1 million question, because generally speaking, you're talking about the mythical beast, which is why it kind of just blew me away so much. And it's not like tons of money. I think it's... Andrew Bonica, would you be so kind as to do a little price research for us on the Mini K47, please? Otherwise, I'm going to end up someplace. Andy Alador, hang on a second. What are you saying there? Lots of love. Hope all is very good. Doing great. Always better when you're in the room. Trust me. And by the way, if you are, I'm going to go off here, so just be prepared. If you are a Jimi Hendrix fan, Andy did this DVD for Guitar World at Electric Lady Studios that is Electric Lady Land. And it's unreal. And the thing that, of many things that blew me away about it, is he's got this, it's like the real book of Hendrix. So, jazz guys, they show up with this dog-eared real book. He's got this binder that has transcriptions that he's meticulously done of the Hendrix stuff, and it's in the DVD there somewhere. And it's just kind of up on the stand. I'm like, this is the, if you will, the Bible of Hendrix. And he's there at Electric Lady, and he's just killing it. Like, the Petrucci DVD, Andy's DVD, the Yngwie one's like, Now I Play Slowly. Top 3 DVDs ever. Just phenomenal. Just phenomenal. So, yeah, there you have it. There we go. $3.49. Thank you very much, Daniel. Okay. Hey, Tom. Okay. There we go. There we go. There we go. Excellent. Thank you. You guys are awesome, by the way. Let me see. With great pleasure, Brian. Thank you. Sally Slow, what's going on? Holy cow, that's a blast from the past. Rick Hunolt. I was thinking about you the other day. Legend. Jess Page, what's going on? Okay, that's going to get us into amplifiers. So Jess is somebody that was at the Vi Academy 2019, a very hardworking guitar student of mine. And so she's kind of in the amp market. So first of all, I would love it if those of you who are bold enough to big note your favorite amp that you own, I would love it if you would do that. What's going on, Mick? So that is to say, what amp it is, what you love about it, and why you bought it. Because sometimes we discover that the thing that we love about the amp has nothing to do with why we bought it. Like, for example, the JP2C, great amplifier, right? I bought it because, I don't know, I had to have it, right? But the thing is that it does a whole range of things. I don't know, maybe that's not the best example because I kind of already knew it was going to be all those things. But I guess what I, and the other thing is kind of, what's going on, Quinn? Once you actually end up with the amp, sometimes, you find out that the amp actually does that thing that you actually really wanted to do. I wanted to know that it had, at the last, I think it was the last John Petrucci Guitar Universe, he did this thing on how he sculpts his tone from the ground up. And it was like, of all the amazing things he taught, that was the one that I was just like, because it's not like he's like, yeah, it has a little bit of low end. He's like, I start here and I dial in the bass and I don't move on until the bass is right. Then the mid-range. I've got to get the mid-range. Just right. And it was like a PhD in tone. And he was so meticulous about it. And, and the thing is that the Mark V, I'd spent some time with the Mark V, and I kind of, if you don't know that amplifier and you kind of come up to it, there's so many knobs and things you can twist. It can be overwhelming. And I felt overwhelmed in that. I'm kind of like, I don't know where to go. The neat thing about the JP2C is just kind of like, it was a pretty immediate thing, and I just kind of went, oh, this sounds great. The other thing is I did the Tom Morello guitar camp. I did a section with Fluff, and we did a reamp thing, and he dialed in the crunch channel on the amp. So I'm like, I haven't touched the settings, right? It's like when, you know, somebody, you know, like, you know, autograph something, your guitar, you're like, I'm never playing that guitar again. So those settings are there. So, and Fluff knows crunch. But just like that amp, just in terms of just being able to get just that aggressive and a beautiful silky lead. But that amplifier, very difficult to mic. And it's one of the few amps that the Mini K47, I couldn't catch it with just one, because it's got just a massive range of sound. There's all this, you know, your average guitar amp sits in the places where it sits. That amp is everywhere in the spectrum, which is why when you hear John playing in the room, you're like, there's so much going on. There we go. Richard Doyle, the JTM45 offset, one of 11 of 300 that used to belong to Joe Satriani, correct me if I'm wrong. And you bought that at our buddies over there in Sausalito. That would be, totally zoning on the name of the music store. Holy cow. Somebody help me. Richard, help me. JCM 2000 100 watt. Come on. Show us the Marshall. Mesa Buggy. There we go. 50-50. Classic tube in the rack with a rectifier studio recording. Awesome. Awesome. What's going on, Jem? How you doing, man? All right. Good, good. Mark 525. Great little amp. Do you have the head or the combo? JP for half the price. There we go. Eamon, what's going on, dude? Good to see you. JC50. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. That's like a JC120, but a JC50. And is that mono or is that stereo? That would be to Tom Cutts, of course. What's going on, Doug? How you doing, mate? Good to see you. Right on, man. Doug, what do you play? What's your amp? Let me know. Bananas. Bananas at large. Gosh darn it. There we go. Bananas at large. Thank you, Tom. Everybody. Loscar, what's going on? Welcome back. I had a JCM 2000, and I kind of wish I still had it. I also have the, I kind of ditched that to get the JVM, but I've been kind of, I'm a Craigslister. You know what? I spend a lot of time on Craigslist just kind of prowling. And one of the things that I'm kind of looking for is a second Marshall head that I can run my two Marshalls in stereo. So basically using the JVM as the master and the other one as the slave. All right, guitar amps. PV Triple X, metal. Awesome. With a telly, no less. Chorus, yeah, bought it for the chorus and the clean tone. Absolutely. What's going on, Mike? Hey, so the JC120 is a great amplifier. I actually have two of them in sooner than later. One of the things we're going to do. What's going on, Rick? How you doing? I have an amp closet. Not a closet that's got a bunch of amps in it, although it does. It's actually an area that we enclosed and then ran cabling through the ceiling. So there is something called the modular snake system from our friends at Diodero/Planet Waves. And basically that's spun through the entire place here. It's kind of what connects everything in this room. And I actually have this room tied into the upstairs. And then the upstairs studio has stuff going through the ceiling as well. So I kind of have the ability to tie in anything that's going on in the amp closet upstairs with here. I've got an amp isolation booth down here, which is, there is a demo that I'm going to be doing where there are times you actually have to turn an amp up. The point being is the amp closet is also a place where I can stick amps in there and turn them up. But I've got a pair of JC120s in there because the only thing better than a JC120 in stereo is two JC120s in stereo. So I love those amps. The chorus circuit is iconic. That is, I think, what they call the 70s chorus inside the Helix, and it's just awesome. 212 cab non-backbreaker. There you go. Awesome. That was Tom talking about the Mark 525. Andreas Stevens Pound Cake 50, 3-channel amp with an awesome effects loop. Bought in '94 and still love it. I am not familiar with that amp, but yes, a great effects loop is important. All right, let me digress on amplifiers, and I'm also going to kind of mix and match with amp styles as it relates to modeling, because they're kind of interrelated here. Now, where is this little? There it is. Okay, can I get rid of that? That is driving me nuts. Gone. There we go. No, it's back. Bad curtain. Not happening tonight. Okay, fine. Be that way. That's a little better. Okay, so there are kind of classes of amplifiers, and I would dare say many, if not most of the people on this thread like these multi-stage high-gain amplifiers, at least when we go into shred solo tone. I'm with you. But that said, I think there are a number of us, and maybe the most of us, that also have this kind of slightly more mellow side, which is where something like a Fender Deluxe Reverb. So that's kind of, if you will, Andrew and I were kind of going through this. How do we call that an amp? We don't want to call it a simple amp. We just ended up going with the name Classic, because it's kind of basically a non-master volume amplifier without an effects loop. And traditionally, you just kind of plug into it. And if you're going to do anything effect-wise, there isn't an effects loop. So you're just going to maybe put a stop or something like a helix into the front end. So again, it's just this very classic traditional thing. Kind of the next type of amplifier is an amplifier that is like that has an effects loop. And an example of that with some extra bells and whistles would be the D20 from Rev. And so it's got the ability to have an effects loop, and then it also has some gain. It's got a master volume, unlike kind of the Deluxe Reverb, which doesn't. The Deluxe Reverb is clean. If you're going to get it to kind of distort, you're either going to turn it way up, or you're going to put some sort of drive pedal into the front end. The D20 has the ability to have drive, but it also has an effects loop, and it's a great pedal platform. Then you end up with these high gain kind of beast with multiple channels. And then you also have the FR, which again, in case you don't know what that means, full range, flat response. So it's basically something like Power Cab. I've got something coming actually from the folks at Headrush. There was a thing that I did for Worship Musician magazine where I kind of, on a whim, I just kind of went out and searched the 10 most popular amps on Sweetwater. By the way, amp shopping. Number one suggestion, if you're kind of like, I think I know what I'm looking for, but I'm not 100% positive. The place that I always go is Sweetwater, and what I do is I kind of, presuming they carry that amp or something, in the range of amps that you're looking for, I will take my search and I'll kind of aggregate it by most popular. And what I don't know is, does that mean that, sold the most in the past 24 hours, historically over time, since all the amps were available, and it kind of takes some mean average of that? Or is it maybe within the past week or month or whatever? And so I don't know what they mean specifically by most popular, but what it does at least allow you to go, these are the ones that seem to be the most popular. In turn, it'll rank those, and in turn, you can kind of set a price point around that. But the most valuable part is to go in and read the comments. Because the thing that I like about Sweetwater is that they don't seem to go in and cleanse the comments. And generally speaking, they don't sell stuff that sucks. But the other thing that they do is you get in and read the comments, and you really find out, all right, I bought it for this. I was really hoping I was going to get this, and this was great, but I didn't like this, and this is where it fell short. The other thing that is always a telltale sign is the 5 stars. If something in there has just a ton of 5 stars, then you're kind of like, okay, this is a real winner. So but that allows you to kind of have a place to kind of go, this is what I'm thinking is going to work, but I want to take a look at what other people are liking about this. That has, first of all, kind of from an editorial side, it was really fascinating to kind of go, okay, because what I wanted to see was, the piece was, are tube amps toast, right? Because I figured, well, what's happening inside the top 10 of the amplifiers? And many of the things were modeling or, kind of the interesting thing is that, there was, I'm pretty sure the Fender Tone Master Deluxe Reverb was in there, which, by the way, if you're looking for a great amplifier, and I mean a great amplifier that has direct out that's ideal for recording. If you live in an apartment, you want classic Fender tone, the Reverb sounds great. You can actually kind of has, if you will, virtual, what do they call it, power scaling. So you can basically take it down to 4 watts, even though you're running out direct. It allows you to kind of act as if you're turning the amp up, but at a lower wattage. And in turn, if you've got some stage volume, allows you to do that as well. So basically, if you turn the equivalent of the standby switch into standby position, it activates the amp functioning in this kind of, the little kind of, whatever the light is, starts to glow amber. And in quote unquote amber mode, it's turned off the speaker, but it's sending the signal out via the XLR on the back, and you've got a choice of a 57 or a Royer, a Shure SM57 or a Royer 121. And if you were to do something like reamping, you could run in the reamp and get the 57 out, do another pass, and get the 121 and blend them together. And it also has just kind of a raw one where you could load your own IR after the fact. So just a huge amount of flexibility. And more importantly, it sounds great and is crazy light. Like Fender just nailed that amplifier. So if you were in the market for a high gain amplifier, I really like the JVM. Honestly, I keep trying to figure out how I'm going to ask Joe Satriani to borrow one of his amps. I am not 100% positive that the JVM 410 JS is actually still in production. I have not seen that as a current offering, but I really kind of like, that's an amp that I am super excited to spend a bunch of time with. Just saying. All right. Unfortunately, so are my tastes. Hang on a second. JP2C is top end. So, the interesting thing is that I like PV as well. Awesome. Yep. The synergy stuff. So I have not, oh, awesome. So Chris, let me know how it is with the synergy. So, plus a pile of preamps. I love that. Like a pile of preamps. That's great. That's so funny. Splon, those are great amps. Totally brown sound. PV Deuce. Brian, oh, that's so funny. There was an amp called the Mace that came out right around the same time as PV Deuce. So my guess is your PV Deuce is a 212 combo. Oh, this is scary because I am about to really, really date myself. The Deuce, depending on how long they ran, and I think they didn't run it much past 1978. And if I was buying amps new in 1978, that makes me wise. That's the word I was looking for, or something, hopefully. Not that I was saying I was wise. It's just trying not to say that I was old. But there was a place called Don Weir's Music City in San Francisco. And used to trek out there with my dad. And so he bought me, I think I had a Deuce that I blew up. So my whole thing was there was a period of about 5 PV amps, and obviously you did not end up with the Deuce that I had, where I would basically bring them home and I would play them on 10 and I would blow them up. And so we ended up with a PV Mace that I again blew up. But there was a whole string of amps, so near and dear to my heart. So my guess is that it's you've got a Deuce 212. It has the Black Widow speakers in it, so it's kind of a black, kind of a plasticky Tolex on the back, the 2 silver stripes down the front, and a black grill that's kind of a nylon grill like that. And I think the dust caps were they looked a little bit like a JBL, so they kind of had a shiny dust cap, if I've got that right. Those amps got really loud, and I had a lot of fun until I blew them up. I think they had an idea what was going on, but in any case, I love it. Mint. Obviously not Dopplerized. That's so funny. JC40. Oh, awesome, Tom. Stereo, right. But those are awesome, 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 awesome. Alrighty here. Let's see. Let me see if anybody has brought forth any questions over on the tube. Oh, there we go. Uh, what pedals have you been working on? Mike Rand. I have, I'm trying to work a backlog of stuff. There we go. Excuse me again. The MGT tube. So the MTG tube tremolo from Fender is on the very top of the gear list. And ironically, I'm going to be plugging it into, probably trying it with that Fender Tone Master Deluxe Reverb as a starting place. That will have been invariably designed by my, dare I say, buddy, Stan Cody over at Fender, who is a genius. And he's actually the guy that kind of did the redesign on the Hot Rod Deluxe 4. And the Hot Rod Deluxe 3 was an amplifier that has, I hope I don't insult anybody here, so please forgive, had a frequency that I just couldn't quite get to inside the EQ. It's an interesting thing. Some amps are like that, and I think you guys know what I'm talking about, where you're like, there's a frequency that sometimes you just can't either turn up or turn down. And with the Hot Rod Deluxe 3, there was a frequency that I couldn't quite pull out. It was this slightly pokey mid-range thing that kind of drove me nuts. And the Hot Rod Deluxe 4 is one of the best amps out there. And yes, I'm super excited to check out the Synergy stuff. Very much. My Crate Practice Amp, PV Renown, 400 212. Yes, loud AF. Boy, the neighbors. A Soldano SLO 100. Carlos, I'll be right over. Holy cow. All right, so Chris Stark is going to get the Vi module, the Deliverance module. I heard Pete Thorne talking about that he was going to demo that. The Diesel VH4, Angle Savage 120 is a killer amp. The Synergy 800 and the SLO modules. You're going to have a lot of fun. I think I need to take... Oh, they won't let anybody from California over there. That's right. I was going to say it's time for a a Hawaiian vacation. But, oh well. DJ Doug. Okay, there we go. Okay. There we go. JVM 20H5. JMD 100. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay. So, let's see here. I like PV as well. TransTube 120. Awesome. All right, Chris. There we go. All right. So, let's see. You guys are awesome. Hit me with some questions, please. What's going on, Mike G Guitars? How you doing, man? The Sun Beta Lead. 412 loaded with Celeste. I had a Sun. What was the Sun? It wasn't the Beta Lead, but it was something. No, that's right. I had the Sun 412 cabinet, and I think I still might have had the PV head at that point. And I think the operative word kind of spanned my entire youth was loud. The louder it could be, the better. There we go. DDJ and DJ separating the Dougs. Then we got oh. Ben, what's going on, man? The V4. So for those not in, I tell you what, a little trivia here, and I want to see it in the chat here. What famous classic rock album was recorded with Ampeg V4s? Like one of the most iconic classic rock albums. By name. I'm waiting. In the meantime, there we go. Come on. Come on, bring it. Come on, somebody knows that. Come on. What's going on, Ben? Good to see you. Rocks. Aerosmith Rocks was apparently recorded on these crazy V4s. Hey, Daniel. I have never actually spent time hanging out with V4s, but I remember the Dixie Dregs. Back in the day, Steve Morse, before he moved over to PV and before he moved over to Engel, was playing these lovely old V4s, and he had this sound that was just flippin' awesome. Just one of the greatest sounds ever. What are popular mods? The Jose mods. Um, that is a great question. So, the interesting thing is, I don't think I own any amps that have mods. But that's not to say that there aren't amps that I have that. There we go. The sun definitely dates us. Yes, David. Shh. Um, that reflect a number of the customizations. And I'm going to recap a conversation that we had with Jeff Slingluff from Boss and Roland, who was here a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that he pointed out, which I was fascinated by and I did not know, is it basically was like, hey, every time you add an additional gain stage, it flips the phase. And I did not know that. So let's say, for example, your secret sauce is to pair a Plexi Marshall turned up or with a, dare I say, Waza tube amp expander, so you can turn it down but turn it up. The Waza tube amp expander is a reactive load box that basically you can hook the amplifier, a tube amplifier, into, and allows you to turn the amplifier up so you get this lovely power amp overdrive, which is kind of the essence of when you think about a great amp sound. A big part of it is that overdrive sound. And the whole reason people started creating these multi-channel amplifiers was to try and get that magic, but at a somewhat more reasonable volume. And there is a difference between preamp distortion and power amp overdrive. And in many ways, a tube screamer, this is kind of my analogy of the difference between overdrive pedals and distortion pedals. Generally, in my opinion, overdrive pedals sound like the power amp section overdriven, where it's kind of this, there's a little bit of compression, a little bit of sag, and you hit the notes and it's ever so slightly, it's a little floppy without being floppy on the bottom end. Where distortion, it's higher gain. It's more like the preamp distortion you get when you have a multi-channel amplifier. So the point being is that, the Mesa Boogie amplifier was adding these multiple gain stages. So say you're using a Marshall Plexi, and it's a non-master volume amplifier, and you've got this Waza tube amp expander in there. What you're able to do is come out of the speaker output of the amplifier, turn the power amp section of the amplifier up so you've got this tube overdrive, which is a lovely sound, and then you're able to take the volume and turn that down. But because you basically have interrupted the signal between the amplifier and the speaker cabinet, then the Waza tube amp expander also has a power amp in it. So now you can add some power back into some speakers so your guitar is able to interact with that. So honestly, that's almost like the coolest tube amp mod ever. And same thing with the aux box, but they're a little bit different. But each one of these things has its own magic. The other thing that's here is the Captor X, which I'm very, very excited to get my... basically, this computer, I've been waiting to get this dialed. So, yeah, Rox is awesome. Sorry, that's what happens when I start reading the chat and talking at the same time, in case you hadn't noticed. The Waza tube amp expander is an amazing piece of gear. The same thing with the aux box. They're a little bit different in what they do. And the neat thing about the two notes thing is it's much smaller. So, you can kind of stick it in your Helix backpack or something. I don't know. But, they all have their own unique thing. And I'm trying to decide if I'm going to do a single video, which I think I'm leaning towards doing, where I can compare and contrast the differences between them. I don't do shootouts because I think that's not a very nice thing to do. Invariably, somebody gets shot, not the way you want to interact with your manufacturers. I think there's a great way you can kind of go, here are the things that if I were to go out and buy this unit, these are the reasons why I would buy this one. Here are the things that I would buy this for, and part of which is price point, part of which is kind of the range of features. The thing that makes the Universal Audio one, the aux box, so unique is we were talking before about the Universal Audio audio interfaces. It enables you to get into the UA world, but in the amplifier side. There's a lot appealing there. And in case you didn't know, one of the things that Universal Audio has done is they've kind of gone, through all the classic pieces of gear, whether it's guitar gear like a CE1, that's the chorus that's in the JC120, whether it's a tube screamer, whether it's the PT100, Pete Thorne's signature amplifier, whether it's Marshalls, they've got a huge, as well as Neve mic pre's and Neve EQs and consoles and all these things. And so they give you the ability to color your sound with those great pieces of gear. So, but the one thing that they don't have, and that's in the Waza Tube Amp Expander, is the STE 3000, which was arguably made most famous by Steve Vai. So, the idea of these tube customizations and there's an interesting thing. Delela, third power amps. So, Delela used to be Jamie Rose, and Jamie Rose was the guitar player in a band called Vane. And back when I had, I don't say back when I had hair, but back when I had lots of hair, we were kind of on the club circuit. They had just gotten signed, so they were kind of off touring the world. But Jamie had the most ridiculous Marshall tone you've ever heard. So there was another guy named Todd Langer, who was also in the Bay Area scene. Todd Langer actually invented the 88 MP1, the MIDI preamps, which of course Kirk Hammett used and a bazillion folks used. I think, Carlos, if you're still on here, I think you had an MP1, right? Ironically, I've never had an MP1. I got to get one. In any case, so Todd used to do these mods on Marshalls, and they were great. But Jamie Rose, Jamie had this tone, and it was kind of like George Lynch. But the other thing is he built some sort of relay in the amp, so there was a channel, a solo boost in it, and it was kind of like, if you were thinking the best 80s Marshall tone you could ever want in a live situation, it was basically like that. I was just like, I can't believe the sound. It was just, and Jamie was just in that band especially, was just like able to just make those notes. It's just ridiculous. But that's the great thing about, a great music city, is that, you've got music being played when people can actually play live that defines an era, right? So like, across the street was a Fab Mab, which is where I met Kirk Hammett. It's where all these bands, the rock bands played all over the place. It was a scene. It was really cool. Unlike now where it's just a bunch of .coms and taxis. Just saying. So amp mods. There is a guy in the Bay Area here. It's an interesting thing. There, if we're going to go down the road of amp mods, there's the other idea of like, let's see if I can say this. Sure. Well, before I mentioned that Stan Cody kind of took the things that were not right about the Hot Rod Deluxe 3 and in the Hot Rod Deluxe 4 made him right. I've got a 65 Deluxe Reverb reissue. And it was okay, but it wasn't great. So I took it to the guy that is the amp guy, works on Kirk's amp, Kirk Hammett, Joe's amps, Joe Satriani. I think on Neil's amps too, Neil Sean, right? Like, basically, you guys might have seen, I posted a photo of like a shower stall filled with like, 10 Marshalls. That's this guy's place. And so Sean Griffin's, he works on his amps too, my buddy from B-Town. So the point being is that I took my Deluxe Reverb to kind of have it made sound like a vintage Deluxe Reverb. So that's kind of a mod in and of itself, because it was a reissue, but it was good, but it wasn't great. And it was just one of those things I plugged into. I'm like, this amp could be better. So I took it to Dave and was like, wow, like that's the ridiculous amp. And now I'm like, okay, this is great. And it wasn't necessarily inexpensive, but I got what I paid for. And so, in that sense, sometimes you're taking an amp. What's going on, Isaac? Welcome back. And bringing it back to kind of where it should have been originally, maybe. Captor X, I can't wait to try it. Chris, do you have, you like the IR capability, so I guess you've got the Captor X. That's awesome. Yes, and Dan, the UA stuff is amazing. Absolutely phenomenal. Had an MP1 and loved it. That's awesome. All right, I'm trolling for comments and questions. All right, folks, give me some questions. Come on. Feed me some questions. All right, let's see here. What's going on, G-Man? Hey, good to see you. Let me just leave a note for everybody over there in YouTube land. All right, good. Awesome. Appreciate it, Eric. All right. Anybody's got any questions? Got questions? All right. Good. All right. So I have plenty of topics that I can digress into. So it gets here tomorrow. Oh, that's awesome, Chris. All right. So okay. Got it. All right. So like I mentioned before, I spent the day putting together the kind of next generation of kind of what this room is going to be based on this computer. And so the short version is that I had a 2012 iMac that's still oh, my wife texted me questions. How about that? There we go. Okay, there we go. Good. Oh, that's great. Okay, Chris Stark, I missed that one, so that's good. That's the wife playing shortstop there. Regarding this whole kind of computer setup thing, the generally speaking, nothing against Windows machines. There was a period of time that I went from Mac to Windows and hung out there for a minute. Right around the time that I started spending a lot of time studying Flash, not to totally date myself, but there used to be these conferences called Flash Forward. Totally date myself. And like Linda of Lynda.com was like that was her conference, actually. That's right. So at that time, Macromedia, now part of Adobe, at least absorbed by Adobe, was releasing stuff more for Windows environment than for Mac. And so because I was kind of passionate about, oh my word, Carlos, I saw that. I'll come back to that in a second. That's hilarious. I went the PC route and then ended up going back to Mac. And, generally speaking, most of the people in the music space are living in the Mac space. I'm going to turn on my air here because you know what? It's hot where I am and we're going to get some noise, so I apologize for that. But it's better than kind of getting hot and sweaty because it's not very becoming either. So, all right, so here's the deal. One of the things that you're looking for in a computer, especially if you're thinking about getting into the streaming thing, which I think we all are, right? Because whether it's lessons, because lessons, although it's not classically streaming, Greg Viederman, oh, holy cow, Viederman, what's going on? And Don, how you doing? Greg Viederman studied with me in, if not the 80s, Greg Viederman studied with me in the 90s. We go way back. The Veed. Actually, the funny thing is you remember the most abstract things about students. He's going to hate me for this. But his dad had bought him a baby blue Ford Taurus. But Viederman, what metal guitar did he have? He had some very metal guitar. Obviously, I'm very fond of my students, and Greg was one of them. So in any case, this computer, ironically, Greg is a computer whiz guy and worked at one of the gaming companies, and he's probably like a billionaire now. Probably tuned in like from his Ferrari. It's like, oh, Doppler's on. I'll check it out. Oh, Ferrari time. In any case, the streaming thing is about the equivalent for me. I think of streaming and teaching lessons as kind of the same thing. It's an online expression of something that I do either as a creative outlet, and I look at teaching as a creative outlet, or musically, which I do as a creative outlet. So I'm going to speak into the creative side of things now. Um, One other thing, and in speaking in the creative side of things, it means that I'm going to also I will talk about the technology side of how it impacts it, but I'm also going to kind of talk about the guy that I study with. Um, YouTube stuff is a guy named Sean Cannell, and he's got like a million subs, and he's like, he's awesome. And so, the thing he always talks about is punching fear in the face. And I don't care who you are, there are moments that you're intimidated. And I think for all of us, and I remember talking with, I think it was Andy Timmons, and maybe, it was at some kind of Satriani type of event. But we were just kind of talking about the fact that, at any moment, where'd my phone disappear to? Well, I can hold this up. Somebody's going to show up and they're going to be like pointing this thing at you, and it is incredibly intimidating to kind of go, of all the entire set, they're going to capture this little moment. It's either going to be one of the highlights, or they just decided to start filming, and it's the moment where all of a sudden I look at them and I get distracted. I'm like, I have a music burp, right? And you're just like, oh, lost my mind. And then they're like, oh, that's great, you suck. Post, right? So that conversation, and it's, for a musician, it's a digital distraction, right? And in case you're not familiar with the phrase digital distraction, which I absolutely love, I think it's one of the greatest terms ever. It's like this thing where you're like, hey, you know what? I am a musician. I'm supposed to be writing and practicing, but oh, I got to check my email. Oh, I got to, like, how many likes did I get on that post? We are constantly distracted by the media, and because part of the way we express ourselves is through the media, we sometimes have this kind of like, oh, I need to stay engaged. And so what ends up happening is our own engagement, our own desire to kind of interact and be present with the people that we're wanting to reach or have follow us or whatever, we take ourselves actually out of the moment that we're actually preparing the art. So one of the things that Sean Cannell talks about is punching fear in the face. And so one of the things and I haven't done it for a couple of weeks, but I'll get on, and the last time I soloed over the changes of the Crying Machine. And I literally soloed for an hour straight. And I think a bunch of you have heard me go on the spiel a couple of times. But for the sake of conversation, uh, uh, the goal was to see how long I could solo, knowing that it's live on the internet without a web, knowing that people are going to potentially, people who like me are going to love it, people who don't like me are going to pick at it. And, and it's extremely, like, to literally just solo for an hour nonstop. It's a moment of musical vulnerability where you kind of go, if I'm going to run out of ideas, how bad is the plane going to crash when that happens, right? Versus kind of like, I'm going to try and stay in this inspired state for this period of time, if you will, kind of a musical, quote unquote, nirvana. And so what was really neat about that is that, and those started kind of at the point that I started streaming. I wanted to just kind of, Larry Mitchell is a great example of somebody that has been utilizing this format extremely well. Plays great, sounds great, and looks great, and is online all the time. And I was like, okay, I've got to figure out how I'm going to attempt to have some sort of sonic integrity the way that Larry has. So, the first time, like, the audio and the video are out of sync, and then the audio quality's bad, and then the video quality's bad, and it's just like, it was bad. But I didn't quit. And this is kind of the moral of the story. It's like, and honestly, I will say, today was one of those days that you're going to have those days, if I'm going to be really honest, that they're totally disheartening. And so, you have to be really, really conscious of listening to the the anti-you. I love it. I've never said that before. Do I have that application open? I gotta write this down. I'm sorry. But we've all met the anti-you, and the anti-you is not your friend. The anti-you tells you, even when you did good, yeah, you did good, but there was that one thing. The anti-you just wants to rob, kill, and steal your joy, and leave you feeling defeated. And honestly, there are days that the technology makes you feel defeated. YouTube, and it actually happened last week, didn't want to grab the stream. Started to and didn't. And it's been a little persnickety. And the point being is that getting into that creative zone and then going, okay, I'm going to hit stream. But then you're going, is it live? And this is one of the things that, as you get used to doing this, I'll give you a couple of tips. A minute ago, I was critiquing myself, and then I never finished, so I apologize for that. But I'll give you some tips on things of what to try not to do and things that I've had to learn not to do. One, if at all possible, have a little countdown clock. And have that countdown clock be long enough such that you can kind of go out onto the different platforms and make sure things are streaming okay. The countdown clock also, unlike tonight, where basically everything that could pretty much go wrong all day long went wrong. But I was just like, you know what? I'm going to keep a good attitude because I want to make sure that when whoever it is that comes and hangs out tonight, I want to make sure I give them the absolute best that I possibly can. Because first of all, that's why you're here. You don't want to hear me grumping about having had a bad day, Mr. Self-Destruct, and being Mr. Self-Destruct and just being just a whiner. Nobody wants to hang out with a whiner, just in case you were wondering. But the idea of just kind of going, hey, look, I don't care who you are, you're going to have bad tech days. And those bad tech days are on a time when you've actually just got to go, I just have to come through and bring the music. I've just got to do it. The show must go on, right? So there are a couple of tips around this. One, the countdown clock allows you to just kind of do it. Now, tonight, I spent so much time configuring this computer, and I don't even think I'm making excuses. I'm just saying, like, it was madness. None of my Adobe apps will load on this computer. So, like, at 25 minutes, 20 minutes before 6, I'm over on my other computer making the thumbnail that goes up on YouTube, and it basically is the background image that's here. And it's just like, it was frantically mad, and I'm basically, when I'm in a hurry, I'll just text myself the image. Bonica showed me how to network my computers together. Thank you very much. And it was just mayhem. But the thing is that, and I didn't get a chance to put the counter in. That's, by the way, Ecamm Live does. That's really cool. Is they have the ability to make scenes really easily, but just bring in a counter, and then the counter comes up. Everybody knows you're getting ready to go live. And basically what happens is, like, at 6:00, I'm working away here frantically at the last little bits, and I go, it's 6:01. Time to make sure everything is going live. Unfortunately, YouTube was behaving, which has been a little persnickety. So all that to say, the countdown clock and some sort of cool graphic. Now, this is an interesting thing because not everybody, I spend a lot of time making digital art. And I don't mean like, oh, I'm making digital. I mean like shooting pieces of gear. Like basically with Worship Musician Magazine, there's a section called Worship Guitar Player. And 75% of the time, I'm making the cover of that section of the magazine. And so because of that, I'm constantly thinking, like, what's the photo going to be? What's the perspective going to be? So this guy I shot, I don't know, like 5:15, 5:20. So I'm like, okay. So the neat thing is my boss over at the magazine, he's what I call him, my publisher, I happen to shoot, I don't know, the Marshall kind of at a little bit of an angle as opposed to straight on. And just by kind of dumb luck and his observation, he said, it's much better than when you've got something flat behind you. So now I'm going to, it's like a wah-wah pedal, I'm going to use it too much. And I should be centered in this. There we go, that's better. The green screen shadow is back. But the point being is having some sort of interesting thing that brings you in is part of the way that you create something that looks engaging, right? So some sort of background. And here's the thing, everybody has an amp. So we've already talked about our amps. So, if you're going to look for some sort of thumbnail, just find some groovy thing and just pull your iPhone out and kind of shoot it at an angle, the great thing is that there is in Photoshop, there is even if you don't shoot in RAW, there's basically a filter called RAW. And that's where I basically take every photo. Hang on a second. Oh, no, I didn't. I just kind of shot that photo. I could have made it look a little groovier, but it wasn't bad. So I just kind of grabbed it and was like, time to go. So, there are a couple of things as you're thinking about kind of pulling all this art together. I'm going to come back to the timer in a second. But the background image that is the background here, that's the background for the timer, you want to have it be something that when people look at it and go, oh, it's worth waiting, And one of the things I've stopped doing is I felt that the 5-minute timer, that's 5 minutes of opportunity for people to go, I got something way more important to do. I'm out of here, So I kind of have gone to, I think, minute and 30 seconds is kind of what is going to be the new norm for me. Long enough for me to kind of make sure that nothing is having a major meltdown anywhere, and enough for a buffer, but not so long that you feel like you're going to lose people. Now, that said, the background and the green screen thing is something that the Ecamm Live does really, really well. So what I did, let's before we get there, let's talk about the first moment you come on screen. This is your average thing that I see over and over again. Are we live? Or they're kind of like, it's this awkward kind of like, well, you're the one that pressed the go live button. You should know. That's one of the things that the countdown really makes it easy. Like, you're right. All right. So, and then again, Ecamm Live, and I will presume OBS or or Slobs, SLOBS. What is the Streamlabs OBS? That when it's a timed scene. So if you have something like a countdown, as soon as that's done, it jumps automatically to the next scene. So the neat thing is you can be watching the counter. I now have a little 5-inch confidence monitor up there so that I can see what's happening. I can see the countdown going. It's right above here. So if I'm kind of looking just like this, especially if I have the old guy glasses on, you can't really tell when I'm looking at the lens and when I'm looking at the confidence monitor. And that's good. But the whole point is that, the countdown ends and I'm like, hey, what's going on? So I can see that the countdown is finishing and then automatically changes to the next slide. The other thing is that there are key commands that you can use to toggle between the scenes and probably all these applications. The other thing that I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to learn a bunch of new things simultaneously. I'm kind of trying to be a little bit more paced about what I do. And I'm not saying this it's all about me. What I'm saying is my suggestion is, you know what? If every week you just add a little something to the mix, then what's neat about that is you kind of progressively, it's continuously getting better. And I think I talked about this the last time, this whole point of the map, right? You got to tack here and you got to tack there. It's really easy. Amir Zitro, dude, what's going on, my man? So James Fox, hey. So Amir and I played in bands like since technically it was the 80s, but I met Amir in what I think must have been late 1979 or early 1980. And so like one of the first times we hung out, the Berkeley Hills kind of, are San Francisco's famous for being like a foggy, what's going on, Amir? It's being, foggy, so like Mark Twain, right? The coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. So we drove along the Berkeley Hills coming back from my buddy Dave Hurst's house, and Dave I've known since like summer camp. When I was a kid, not John Petrucci summer camp. And like the fog was so intense, we had to pull over. So, and Amir was like, Amir and I played in lots of bands together. And actually, Carlos, you asked about King Masavi. But Amir, he was kind of this child prodigy bass player, and he had this great blue Rickenbacker bass, all this great hair, and the girls loved him. He had all the cool that I didn't at that age. I was like, I want to be like that guy. And Amir, I wanted to, do you still have that Mustang bass? Was it a Mustang bass? That's got like, curious to know. So in any case, I remember all these crazy abstract things that just happened. So, great bass player. There's a shot somewhere, and I can't pull it up tonight, of us at the Omni with all this crazy hair. But probably New Year's Eve night, 1989/1990, we played New Year's Eve at the Omni, opening for Y&T. That's right. Good times. All right. I digress. So the idea is we were talking about that first moment when the stream comes on and you're kind of live, as opposed to like, is anybody there? Don't ask, is anybody there? Just don't. Just don't. Here's okay. A couple of things. Watch some people go live and just go, I'm not going to do that. 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 When you're live, you go, hey, what's going on? Hope everybody's doing great. Hey, do me a favor. Let me know where you're coming from. Thanks very much for hanging out. It's always nice to just engage people. And this is the thing. What's great about this format is I can take off my old dude spectacles and I can kind of look you in the eyes. We're hanging out. And again, it's kind of one of the things that I really love. I love YouTube, but it's one of the things that I love about Facebook, especially the people I know from the guitar camps. We get a chance to kind of hang out, and it's it is, there is something social about it in a time not just where people are socially distanced. We were already socially distanced before this whole thing happened. And so it's nice to actually feel that you're making some sort of connection with people. So the neat thing is inviting people into that moment. That eye contact is really important. It's like, moment is live. Hey, what's going on? How you doing? Blah, 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 blah. Whatever. And, and if it helps, maybe you're not, maybe you're the guitar player and somebody else always does the talking. Practice in the shower. The other thing is Ecamm Live has a record function, so you can actually practice just kind of being in front of the camera without going live. The other thing is you can also, as I'm sure all of you know, you don't have to take a stream public. So I spent a lot of time just kind of doing test streams, like I did earlier today, to make sure the internet was going to behave slightly, which it actually has been really good tonight. But the other thing that happened, and there's always some, Anthony Best, what's going on, dude? So, oh, that's so funny. I'm gonna. It was a Music Master, but alas, no. Oh, dude. All right, so hang on. I'm going to come back to all of this. Let me continue on here. Mr. Best, I got words for you. Good ones. I saw that Fryette power amp, by the way. That first moment when the stream comes on, just watch what some people do and just don't do that. The other thing is just practice doing some test streams, and just be prepared, especially if you're going to announce something. Doing some test streams that afternoon as well. One of the things that happened today, like generally the internet here is about 50 megabits per second down and about 12 to 15 up. And generally you need about 10 to have a good quality stream. And I'm streaming at 4K now because I'm like, I want to push the envelope a little bit and try and get things to look as good as I can. Again, you're hearing a little bit of the new fan there. So I am thinking about some of the options that I can try. Again, I've got enough level here, and I've got a meter here that is in Ecamm Live that I can see that I have enough level, and I can see it comes up a little bit there, and I can hear a little bit more of that stuff when I'm over here. But you can still hear me fine over here, and I can still meter it over here. So it's kind of like what happens when you're in Pro Tools. I'm always making sure I'm not having an overage, right? I'm always watching my interface, because all it takes is a little bit of digital overage. And as a slight aside, never trust a meter. There was something I did with my old company, Gear Tunes. We did something with Premier Guitar and Sweetwater. And I did a bunch of the video footage in this room, and then we flew out to Sweetwater, and we did the event from there. The rest of the event, I should say. And I was using a different, quote-unquote, mastering plugin then, and it did not show any overages, but I got an email or a call. It's like, dude, there's some distortion on there. I'm like, and my first instinct was like, you're right. And then I listened, I'm like, yeah, right. So, generally speaking, even if it feels critical, usually even kind of the nasty comments usually have some truth in them. So I always try and listen without kind of being too vulnerable to that stuff. In this particular case, it wasn't a critical comment. It was like, dude, you got digital distortion on there. Fix this. And I went in, I'm like, I can't see it, but I can hear it. And that's the thing is never trust a visual meter. use your ears to just kind of go, am I getting overages? So I now use the precision limiter from Universal Audio. If you set it such that it is at -4 dB and then crank the dial, and generally I find with dialogue I want to boost that as well, I never have any digital overages, and it's perfect. I also use the 1173 Rev A with the Angie John preset on the stereo bus setting. Perfect. And for if something that's going to have like a soaring kind of lead guitar, sometimes I'll move that over to the lead vocal setting, again, the Andy Johns presets, and I'll use that in combination with the precision limiter. Put the precision limiter afterwards, and it makes things work very nicely. All right, so again, at the top of the stream, things are cool. This afternoon, the internet freaks out. I'm getting 5 down and like 10 up. I'm like, is it going to be one of those? Fortunately, everything kind of chilled out and it's cool. I almost for a second, and I did a speed test, and this is one of the things you can do, speedtest.net, is that I've thought, okay, if it's going to be this bad on a wire connection, maybe I'm actually, for once, actually going to break the rule of using Wi-Fi. Generally speaking, if at all humanly possible, do not stream using Wi-Fi. Just say it. Because it kind of goes up and down, and when it goes down, you're done. And as I understand, basically the years ago there was a protocol called SMILE, Smart Interface for Internet. I don't know. It was basically right around the time Flash came out, and it was a protocol that you can kind of bundle video and audio. And so I bought in a SMILE server, and I thought I was gonna be part of the SMILE wave and produce kind of audio and video content that could stream. It was the early days of basically doing what we're doing now, but not actual streaming. It was actually bringing, because at that point, YouTube didn't exist. I was the webmaster for BAM magazine, so like I've been around digital media a long time. And so I saw this kind of the beginning of the video coming onto the web, and I was like, this is really cool. And what it did was it had separate, within SMILE, there were separate protocols through which the audio and the video traveled in packets. So basically, what happens is as your content is flowing, it's flowing in these little packets. And what happens with Wi-Fi is because it's not as consistent a pipeline as the packets drop out. It gets and lurchy, and it's bad news. And again, there's so much great content online. People don't want to watch somebody with bad video unless they're really good, and in which case then none of that matters. But it does matter. The other thing is light. Light is important. I spent 10 minutes fussing with this little light here, but light is a really important thing. And Chris Stark, do me a favor, let me know what's happening in your Masha Crane. Oh my word. Hey, what's up, girl? ¿Cómo estás, amiga? Oh, that's awesome. Speed test by Oklahoma. Awesome. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yet 1176 Rev A is one of my faves. Absolutely. That is an amazing, amazing piece of gear. Brian, thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Anthony. Okay. So let me hit the pause button there for a second, then we'll come back and ramble more about streaming. But again, don't do that first, like, is anybody there? It's like, it takes a minute for people to see that you're online. It's highly probable that there's nobody there. But just talk to them. The other thing is that a lot of times we're going to have a replay, right? So don't be kind of like, hi, I'm a moron. I'm still a moron. They're not going to tune in the next time. Just saying. All right, there was a question there that came in from Chris Stark that Melissa sent through that I had missed earlier. Okay. So what are you typically reading? So what are your what are typically your expectations for your students' audio setup when you're doing remote lessons? I'm getting my own audio streaming setup quite nicely set up, but I feel like it would be daunting to ask the same of my potential students. That's a great question. Okay, we're going to tether this into this whole streaming conversation. I think in the next 5 years, let's just give it a nice long window. I think pretty much anybody that's on the stream tonight is going to be streaming themselves on the internet on arguably a semi-regular basis. That's just going to be part of how we express ourselves as musicians. And so in the framework of that, the concept of like earlier on, we talked about the idea that this broadcast audio thing. So what does that look like? That means that you've got some sort of small audio interface. It's in a box in the other room. There is a what is DPA makes very high-end headsets and labs. So there is this little audio interface that I swear is no bigger than this that showed up to review. And a headset. Now, I'm not really the biggest fan of headgear, right? It just kind of, for me, I don't, unless it's a Shure SM7B, and I kind of like the MV, what are you? You're the MV, I don't know, something or other. This guy. This guy's pretty cool looking. But I generally don't like seeing a microphone in there. You know, let's face it, we're not Larry King. Like with Larry King, it looks cool, but for most of us, it's just kind of like, first of all, why I think it bothers me in the guitar space, in particular, is that we're guitar players. These are mics that we don't traditionally use. There's something about the SM7B that I actually really like the way it looks. I know it sounds really stupid, but something about that mic is kind of pleasing to the eye. It's kind of not particularly distracting in visually. This thing is like, if I stick this up here next to my head, it's got a little bit of reflection, and honestly, it's a very cute little mic. But the thing is that does that really look particularly heavy metal to you? No. Does it look Stevie Ray Vaughan? Maybe, you know. But I think of, you know, I'm going to think of George Thorogood and whatever his band was, the Destroyers, whatever they were. You know, I want to play harmonica into this thing. You know, I'm not thinking this is particularly heavy metal. I guess Hetfield's got a mic that looks like this. Kind of put it up like that, though, right? That was kind of funny. But the idea is it's a visual distraction. The idea is that okay, well, actually, we've now stumbled into kind of this whole set thing. Masha, if you're still here, or if that is actually Sam Crane on Masha's account. So Sam Crane was when I started doing video for hire, Sam was the DP, Director of Photography, for the orange stuff we did. And if you head over to, hold on a second, I got to put the glasses on or else I'm not going to see any of this. So we basically shot all this stuff here. We turned this into a video studio, and it was us and the Dunlop folks were the first people to start shooting with DSLRs. And Sam's a genius, brilliant photographer, brilliant videographer, had a great sense of how to frame a scene and a set and how to light. I mean, just everything, just a total genius. So I can't say I really learned everything I know from him because he was so far ahead of any frame of reference that kind of like I got to be talent. He got to be the talent on the other side of the equation. But in so doing, you know, once he moved to Mexico, I was like, I'm kind of on my own. And so I kind of had to start figuring stuff out on my own, which is actually an inspiring place to be because, you know, you're either going to sink or you're going to swim. And it's not very fun to sink. So I was like, okay, I got to figure this thing out. But one of the things that I've tried to be conscious of is, okay, if I'm going to have something like, sorry, there it is. Wait a second. Where are you? There we go. There. Holy cow. Try not to do stuff like that, by the way. You know, if I'm going to have some sort of, you know, logo and branding, I want it to be there, but I don't want it to be too big. I don't want it to be too distracting, you know, and also to my disadvantage when I haven't done, you know, we're already, you know, oh, my word, 2 hours and 8 minutes into this thing. I haven't gone, hey, by the way, if you're on YouTube, you don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell. You know, it's just like vomit, you know, it's just like, and there's a nice way to say that. Say, hey, like, you know, if you like what you're seeing, do me a favor. If you're on, well, I guess I'm going to go there now. But if you're on YouTube, please, like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and ring the bell so you know when we're going to go online again or when new videos drop. If you're on Facebook, if you can, maybe share the stream on on your timeline, which is one of the things I'm going to start asking people to do, because I can do it in a way that doesn't feel like I'm just trying to just like wring you out like a towel, and so there's that sense of trust with the people that you're reaching. And I think that is one of the neat things about getting back to this thing we were talking about, guitar players in the next 5 years. They always kind of say, as they're talking about, the CDs you have, it's your friends that show up at the shows. It's your friends who buy the CDs, it's friends and family. And then hopefully it grows from there, right? So the idea is you want to make it entertaining enough so that when friends and family tune in, they're like, that was cool. They're getting better and this is fun. The framing of this, and this is a slightly long-winded answer to your question, Chris, but it's all relevant, is that I think pretty much everybody that wants to do music wants to do something like this. They want to actually get a nice camera. They want to get some lights. They want to actually kind of go, I want to look cool online. I think that, and the neat thing about this particular time is like I said, it's the first time that you can be on the same stage, quote unquote, as Joe Satriani and Steve Vai. They're on Facebook streaming. We're on Facebook streaming. Like, there's no difference between their platform and our platform. That has never happened before, except for when Steve was playing in clubs and Joe was playing in clubs. And that was a long time ago. Ain't coming back. So, our ability to kind of take advantage of that same platform that they've got, that is a once in a lifetime opportunity that we're actually at that moment. So then it comes down to kind of going, okay, let's advise people about this. So a couple of things. I think Mr. Sir Richard Doyle, I had mentioned, I think it's the M400 was the mirrorless camera from Canon that he picked up. I think came with a lens. There's also the M50, and again, I know if Mark is watching, I'm going to be putting together this gear list that's going to have stuff that what we recommend and why. But the idea of having an affordable streaming camera, or for those of us that actually, it's like, hey, you know what? This is part of our craft. It's part of our art. And maybe if we actually spend enough time and energy promoting this, we actually have formed a business around it. So there are tax benefits that come along with actually buying some of this gear that we can write off and depreciate and so on and so forth. Point being, I think looking good online is something that people are going to get very interested in very quickly. And I was on part of what I do with Worship Musician is we interact with the Christian record companies. And so I've been on a couple of calls with the folks in that world. And one of the things that I've said in those calls, without going into any great detail, because that would not be appropriate, is that, we're going to probably look back on this time of the bad version of the Brady Bunch and just cringe. And that, just in the same way that as I bring artists onto this show, the things that we will potentially be doing with Worship Musician, I really, kind of reiterated, it's like, look, I think we're all going to look back at this and go, what were we thinking? It looks bad. But my thing is kind of going, look, we there's some ways that we can smarten this up. And I said, look, in the next 3 months, any one of the major artists that we would have been talking about in those calls, they're going to have a nicer system, and it's not just going to be using the webcam that's built in there. The other thing is that there are a bunch of HD and 4K webcams that are just about to explode onto the market. And so that's one of the exciting things, and I'm kind of interacting with some of those companies, because the neat thing about what I get a chance to do, because I work on, again, in case you didn't know, like, churches are streaming like mad. Some good, and some not so good. But they're streaming. So what's neat is that there are these companies that are coming out with some great technology. And so the neat thing is I'm getting a chance to interact with pretty much anybody that's in the space, because I want to know as much as I can of just about anybody that's both in this world, mainstream world, and in the worship world, because then I can kind of navigate between the two. I can come out onto this show and kind of go, this is what I've learned, and I can hang out in that world, and I can share that with some of the folks that there's an article that I have in this issue of Worship Musician magazine. That actually it hasn't officially gone live online, but it's basically about streaming. Kind of, as I said earlier in tonight's stream, it recapped a lot of the stuff that we talked about last week. Somebody's liking something. Thank you. And so the deal is that, you know, I basically, there was a really well-intentioned, and I want to say this, all the love in my heart, worship team that I found their stream, and I will never share, besides a couple of people close to me, this stream with anybody. But the thing that I put in the magazine was like, look, you know, just because you can stream your worship doesn't necessarily mean you should. And you know, the vocals were out of tune, and it reminded me in that framework that there's a lot of training that needs to be done, not just on the streaming side. The interesting thing is most of the musicians I know on the mainstream side, I know from these guitar camps who are all accomplished players who've had people around them. That's not always the case with a volunteer environment like a church. The point being is that, ironically, the churches are doing a huge amount of streaming on a weekly basis. So I'm excited because I get a chance to learn all this crazy stuff like this PoE, and that is Power over Ethernet. And so, and there are all these things that like are coming on to, you know, this thing. And earlier I talked about this concept of Dante, the video protocol for Dante. You know, 5 years from now, we're going to have either some version of this that, you know, is fancier and better. But, you know, the next 2, 3, 4 years, our video and our audio is going to be traveling along one cable. And it's just going to be plugged in. And that's a very exciting time to live in. So the long-winded version of the answer to your question, Chris, is I think the students are going to get a better camera. For right now, the built-in microphone in something like, you know, an iMac isn't bad. The most important thing, and this is important for everybody to know, is that when you go into Zoom and you go into the audio preferences, if you don't see it on the screen, you want to make sure that that you get it so you can have it revealed on the screen. You can get to this again in the audio preferences, where there's a trio of things in the deeper menu, but one is the ability to display original audio and toggle it on or off. And so when it says turn original audio on, it's actually in the off position, and it doesn't apply any of the compression to it. And so basically, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, is that Zoom looks at music as background noise. So it tries to filter it out. It's not like it's just some crappy audio platform. It just doesn't know the difference between music and noise, especially with distorted guitar. And because if you think about it, it's distorted. It goes, hey, distorted sound, get it out of there. Echo. It hears the delay in the guitar, goes, that's echo, get it out of there. So we're basically creating the exact parameters that Zoom should be going like, out of there. So what's neat is they give you the ability to defeat that. And in that setting, I've had great results with Zoom. So I'm using an audio interface that I can go in there. So another hack that I have no idea, yeah, I do, I can see it. There is a box called the Teleport. There's actually two boxes called the Teleport. But one is made by a guy named Danny Gomez, who is a great guitar player, works with Orange Amplifiers, also did the Queen show in Spain, he plays with Brian May. Great guy, great player, but he invented this little audio interface. It was actually Chris Stark, thank you very much, that hit me to the fact that my UA audio interface, basically if I come in on that interface and I go into some app like Gig Performer, that's a tone generating application, I'm also bringing my shotgun into Zoom from that interface, but unbeknownst to me and separate from the shotgun, my direct signal of my guitar is not only being fed into that Gig Performer application, it's also being fed into Zoom. No, that's not what we want. We do not want our direct sound in there. So I have not tried it yet, and there are a couple of other cool things you can do. An application that I am now using is called Loopback. And it basically is a mixing, and I talked about this last week, and again, it's going to be on the gear list. It's $100, $99, but it solves 99% of the problems that I've been having where the Mac is not great about being able to choose where you're going to route audio from which application and where you're not going to route audio from which application. It's basically like a mixing board and buses, and it is awesome. But it's got latency, and I need to actually isolate and figure out how much latency it's actually got. Again, if I snap my fingers, chances are you're going to see some latency between the sound of the visual of my finger snapping and the sound of that. So I can time align that in Ecamm Live, as I mentioned before, but just by recording some video, bringing that into Premiere, see how many frames the offset is, and then going ahead and fixing that. So there are some things that we can do to fix that. But the point being is by using a separate audio interface like the OMEC teleport, I can target that audio interface on USB to just go into Gig Performer, and I can use this guy. I'm pointing to my UA interface just for the shotgun, so I can separate those inputs. But then using Loopback, I can merge them or send them wherever I want to, including the output from something like Gig Performer to go into Zoom. I can basically go, I'm going to choose multiple things to feed into Zoom. So I've got a great shotgun and I've got a great sound inside the box. I'm going to go down that trail a little bit further here because the next part of this is going, okay, well, let's talk about the student. Does the student necessarily need to have an amplifier in the room, or can they have an amp in the box? So if they've got some sort of audio interface where they can get their voice in, and then they can get their guitar input in, and or they're just using the microphone in for their voice and using some little audio interface like the teleport. That's a good idea. And then they're using some sort of little, application from, I don't know, IK Multimedia. And all of a sudden they've got instant guitar tone inside the box. And that, again, for $99 or however you route it, because then it's a matter of how you're going to get that audio output. Well, okay, the stupid answer is this, is that you're using the built-in microphone for this. You're using the teleport, which is, it's not very much money, to get your guitar into the computer via USB, quarter-inch USB. And then in turn, that comes out of the speakers. The speakers then come in through the microphone that's being picked up on the computer, and then with echo cancellation, you should be fine. That would probably work just fine. And then it's just having some little kind of amp modeling software in there without a ton of latency, and you're probably good to go. So I will be working on that type of a solution and report back on that. Let's see what other questions we might have. All right, now that before I do that though, first of all, Marcus James, the legend, the man. Dude, it's been way too long. All right, so I got to give some props here. Marcus James is a guy that I did some session work, but before I did some session work for Marcus James, he used to hire this guy named Joe Satriani. And there's a record called Green Eyes that has some pre-Surfing with the Alien Joe Satriani studio work on it. And it is, first of all, it's a great record. But second of all, there's some great Joe Satriani playing on there. And I think it's the DS1 into a JC120, which, by the way, Always With You, Always With Me, I think was the DS1 into the JC120. Kind of, who would have thunk it, right? But Marcus, great player, great musician, great friend. Not that I haven't spoken to him recently, but just a lovely guy. And that's awesome. Got to catch up. I digress. All right, let's see here. Brenton, what's going on? Good to see you. Hello, everybody. Neil Crouch, how are you, dude? Teddy, what's happening? Everton, hello. All right, Mike Williams, Melissa. Oh, hey, what's going on, Melissa Halberg? How you doing? Who was I watching? I was watching the geeky guy on YouTube. So, Hunter Halberg. In case you guys haven't heard of Hunter, and maybe that's just Hunter kind of hanging in on his mom's Facebook, Hunter is like this teenage guitar shred wonder kid, and he won like the best guitar young player in this competition in the UK. I met him at the John Petrucci Guitar Universe. Great guitar player, but I forget the name of the YouTuber, but he kind of has these glasses, and it was this collection of these shredder kids. But Hunter was on there shredding away. That was awesome. Hunter Halberg, you got to check him out on his main place that he hangs out is Shredding Your Face Off on Instagram. So you've been warned. Hello, Sarah. What's going on? Brian, what's happening, dude? Okay, so I'm going to attempt to answer questions. Hello to everybody that's come in. Thanks so much for hanging out. All right. Okay. So Anthony Best. Okay, so no, the Sony stuff is great, and so all right. So getting back to this kind of this content creation side of things, I'm a Canon guy. I've got this. I bought the EOS R. And the neat thing is that all these cameras now are increasingly becoming plug and play in the streaming world, which is a big deal. So and they're becoming less and less expensive, and you basically come out of the mini HDMI or USB out. You can get a clean output. That is to say, it doesn't have any of the overlays on the screen, and you can do it. Not only that, I was able to do that with my old 7D. That I don't even think it's a Mark II. And what's great about that is it's got this, my buddy Sam Crane suggested that I buy a very nice, at the time, $1,500 or $1,700 lens. And the thing is, you plug that camera in, and the look, I mean, it's just because this camera here is good, but there's something about Canon glass. It's just amazing. Same thing with the Sony stuff. And getting back to the Sony stuff, besides Anthony Best, who is a fellow YouTuber and has a crazy setup, does great work, great guy. And the funny thing is that Anthony just needs to know that anytime he lists something on Craigslist, I always know it's him. First of all, I start to recognize his room, but I also recognize the kind of the area of where he lists his stuff in, and of course the type of gear he lists. So I saw that power amp in there, and with that other MIDI box. What else was in the rack there? I'm like, oh, that's Anthony. So in any case, so there, so Sony makes great cameras. Paul Davids is a guy, if you haven't seen his YouTube videos, you got to check it out. That's the other thing, is when we put together the gear list, we will actually kind of go, and here are some examples of people using some of the specific gear. So it's a particular look. The Sony stuff is beautiful. The Canon stuff has its own little look, and if your thing is the Canon thing, you're kind of in it for that. Now, the other conversation that people have, as long as we're kind of in camera world here for a minute, is camcorders. The interesting thing is you're looking at me through a Panasonic, and I mentioned last week, I think I'm on the third generation of Panasonics. This is an AG something or other, HMC 150P or something like that. So that's an HD camera, and that is to say it's 1920 by 1080. That's been replaced by the UX90 as I went to kind of, I was like, I got to shoot everything in 4K. And the neat thing is I'm able to, through a hack, basically, I'm able to stream on a let's back up a step. So there's HD, which is 1920 by 1080. Then there's Ultra HD, which is technically, apparently, the original spec was a little bit larger than 3840 by 2160, but that's double 1920 by 1080. But I guess the original and the actual spec of UHD is a little bit wider than 3840, like 4,000 and some change. But if you lose anything off the edges, you probably won't notice it per se. But the thing is, at the point that I was like, I got to start shooting in 4K, until I started editing in 4K, and I was like, maybe this isn't the best idea. In any case, I had these old cameras lying around. I'm like, well, nobody really wants an HD camera. And I just kind of one day on a whim just kind of plugged in the HDMI out and got a card, and I was like, that's a nice looking camera. So I have a pair of those, and sooner than later, I've got a Roland VR1 HD that will be integrated in the system, and I also have the Blackmagic ATEM Mini Pro that's supposed to ship some year from the folks at B&H. So it means that I'll be able to switch between a huge array of cameras, and I've got two 7Ds. I've got like four of the. And last week I was talking about zoom cameras. I'll be able to stick one of those kind of over in the amp isolation box there, and then I've got the 4K cameras, the two Panasonics, because I always buy them in pairs so that the image matches. Somebody out there is going, well, okay, so if I want a second camera, how important is it to buy a matching second camera? If you're serious, if you're the sort of person that likes to play in stereo and something's messed up about your stereo field and it drives you nuts, shooting with two different cameras will make you lose your mind. Because when you cut from one to the other, the everything about the color of your guitar is going to shift. You know, if there's something that's in the room that's a particular color or shade, it's going to shift and it will drive you nuts. And more importantly, just kind of, we're so used to seeing matched cameras now, I think it's one of those things that can be annoying. Now, this is the other great thing about shooting in 4K is you can bring it down to 1920 by 1080. And what you can do is then in digital zoom, you can basically bring it down to 1920 by 1080, but then have the ability to zoom in digitally and just provide your own cuts by applying a digital zoom in post, which is actually quite cool. I can also do stuff like that. Let's see here. Am I going to do that at 8:30? No, I'm not. Rogue Amoeba Software. That's right. Thank you, Tom. Woohoo! Okay. Anthony Best. Shooting in 4K, editing with proxy files. You need to get me up to speed on that. Get the right tone for Crystal Planet. When you figure that out, Quinn, you tell me, but I will be happy to do whatever I can. That would be great. All right, who's texting me over here? Somebody I know. Oh, Amir! Oh, dude! Dude! Oh, look at that. He's got that printed out. That is, hold on. Let's see if I can, hold on. Let's see what kind of trouble I can get myself into. Right keyboard, right mouse. Right keyboard, right mouse. All right, good. Okay, let's see if we can do this. Come on. There we go. Let's see what kind of trouble I can get myself into. All right, you. Aha. I could have done that in a much smarter way. Oh boy, every so often I just kind of go, what were you thinking? All right, let's see what happens if I bring this in. Ooh, okay, there's that. Let's see what happens if I bring this in here. All right, we're here. Where are you, Doug? What scene are you in? We're in this scene. Okay, so we want to try going here. Let's see what happens if we go here. And that's there, okay. Why are you not letting me do that? Come on. There we go. All right, let's do that. That's that guy, right? Yeah. Who knows what's about to happen? There we go. Hey, there we go. Joe's. We lost Joe there, but there we've got. Oh, that was fun. So let's see. I can't. You guys can't see the mouse. So at the top there, you've got Mr. Joe Satriani. Oh, hang on. Let's see if I can do this. You gonna let me do this? No, you're not gonna let me do that. Okay. Oh, this is so stupid what I'm doing here. So there we go. So there's my buddy Paul Baker, and there is Amir Zitro, the one and only. That's the Dougster. Look at that guy. Look at all that hair. Holy cow. That's Tony, whose last name I've forgotten. That right there is Jeff Tyson. That's Joe Satriani. And hey, what's going on, Josh? And that would be Kirk Hammett. And the funny thing is, after that show that night, Kirk and I and Rebecca, his wife at the time, we went out for Korean. Like, they have this thing where they do. I'm feeling rude for blocking. Well, I'm blocking my own face. That's okay. I can get away with doing that. Get in and get out of the way there, Doppler. But unfortunately, we've lost Joe there, and I don't think I can adjust that without doing a little bit of photo editing. So let me go back to where I came from. Come on. Here we go. Thumbnail, background. There we go. Okay. Good. Amir, thank you for sending that through. So that is a treasured photo, and that's so cool. Amir and I spent a lot of time playing in bands together. A lot of fun. Great player, great guy. Actually, it's really funny. Amir, do you have the photo with the falsies? There was a Halloween party. It's the funniest photo. I hope I don't offend anybody, and I apologize in advance if I do. But there's this photo where Amir was in drag, and he's got these great set of falsies, and I'm kind of grabbing the falsies, and somebody snapped a photo. Amir, let me know if you've got that. I promise I will not put it live on the stream, but it was that was fun. Actually, that brings me back. So we used to hang out 1749 Oregon Street. So it was the musician's house. So we were roommates, played in a band together, played in Kemosabe, and Captain Crunch, of course. And so we there was basically, it was a 2-story musician house. It was awesome. All we did was hung out and played music. It was the best. So the thing is that he had this room underneath the stairs, and he used to let me kind of come in there and play his records. But Amir was the guy that I discovered Dawkins through. So he had, I think, Breaking the Chains, and that was back when, yes, Anthony, we will definitely chat. He's like, check this out, and I was like, and I love George Lynch's playing, and so I just remember that was, and I think everybody remembers certain records where they were the first time they heard them, and I remember like pulling the thing out. I was like, check out Dawkins. So he used to let me go in there and play his Dawkins record when he was at work or whatever. Brent, I edit in Premiere. I am an Adobe. I have the Adobe Creative Cloud. It used to be the Creative Suite. I can't remember which one it is. But it allows me to have this kind of round trip process that works really well. And generally, it's pretty cool until it kind of forgets your passwords. So you just have to remember your passwords, and then kind of makes you create a new password. So if you've got kind of one standard type of password that you use, that you kind of customize for different things, if you kind of can't remember how you customized it for that thing, it's a pain in the butt. So yeah, all right. Oh, look at that photo. That's awesome. Okay, so let's see here. Let me just double check that nobody has asked me some question. There we go. JCM 900. Thank you, Eric. Went with the serve reactive load. Torpedo cab. Don't gas for modelers anymore. That's funny. That's awesome, G-Man. What's going on? A great guitar player. Great guitar player. Let's see here. You guys have probably never heard of Joel Osteen. He only does church in the Astrodome. So that's my buddy Michael, and he's the guitar player there at Lakewood Community Church. He basically streams on live TV in front of 1 million people every week. Just an amazing, great guitar player, a great guy, and yeah, there you go. What do I use for power conditioning and surge protection? That's a great question. I have a box. First of all, in the rack here, I am using a Furman power conditioner because everything is, I don't believe in kind of just leaving stuff where it can get totally fried. And I've had an when Amir and I when we were in Kemosabe, what was it? The farm. Oh, I can't believe I remember that name. So, Carlos, now I'm going to answer your question. So my amp that I've still got, that was the amp in Kemosabe, the main one for most of the time was a JC120 that I got from Mike Mong from the Freak Executives. And so then I kind of had a rack that was on top of it that had an SDE 3000. I think I only had one of them at that point. And so this place, the farm, like the power was just messed up, and all of a sudden you'd get these spikes, and the meters on the on the SD 3000 would just go from metering normally to just totally in the red because of these power surges. So I was like, oh, never had anything like that happen besides at a place called Pops, which is in Sauget, or Sauget, which is halfway in between. It's on the St. Louis, Michigan border or something like that. But we were opening up for Michael Schenker, and the power there was just jacked. Everything was super noisy. Uh, Generally speaking, my gear is pretty quiet. It was just everything was buzzing and just like it was bad power. And the place was kind of famous for that. But there are these boxes, and I don't remember the name, but they not only are power conditioning, but they basically are a sequential power strip, and I'll include that in the list of gear because that's great. Um, Basically, it's got a foot switch. So say, for example, there's a power surge and they power down. Well, there's a certain order that you want to power stuff up in, and say, for example, your power amps and your mixers such that things don't go pop. So say, for example, you've turned on your power amp and then you fire up your mixer and you hear that god-awful that everybody goes, nice move. So the idea is you turn on the mixer first, and then you bring up the power amp afterwards. So it has the ability to do that, and they're really cool. So I've got 2 of those here, and then also on that same Schenker tour, I bought a bunch of Belkin. After that trip to Saget, I was like, okay, never again. So I bought some nice Belkin power conditioning power strips, which it's better than nothing. Yes, sirree. Yes, sirree. All right. Jam Kazam. Michael, I think Jam Kazam is that application that I have not yet checked out. And there's 2 applications I'm thinking in mind. One that allows you to kind of sync up through some sort of code that I was checking out, but it's the other one that I haven't yet. So to answer your question, limiter, yes, okay. The deer in the headlights, yes, no, deer in headlights bad, Michael. We know that. And Eric, limiter, oh yes, and oh, thanks, Will, appreciate it. What's in my current pedal board? That is an interesting. I have gear problems. There is no single rig. Okay, so to answer that question, my Helix. But there's other gear here that is in the process of going through various gear tests. The challenge is that because I'm streaming and I'm setting up to do different things, I've identified the fact that I have to have a home base where there is just a rig that lives, and kind of for right now, it's just becoming the Helix because we're doing this training for the Helix, and it's just like it's conveniently there. So that's kind of been it for this time. So yes, okay, alrighty then. Who's got some questions? Oh, there we go. Somebody shot that through. Let's take a look at that. I've got, hold on. I'm not seeing the exact one on there, but basically I think it's got 8 plugs, including, one of the things that I like about it is it's got kind of a, and I guess all the Furmans do, but it's got that kind of one plug on the front. It's really convenient to be able to not have to be on the backside to get all the power there. It's a very clever thing that they did. Mine's kind of got the telescoping lights. I think I got it some special at Guitar Center. It was like on some crazy sale. I was like, ooh, gotta have it. So that's kind of what I have in the rack. And then all the computer stuff kind of plugs into that just to make sure that that's good. But the Furman stuff is rock solid. That's really good. That's awesome. Furman is by Nortec Security and Control, so I guess they've been bought by somebody because I don't remember that. Alrighty then. By the way, try not to have the scratchy mouse. Scratchy mouse, bad. Jeff, I blew a speaker in my 1x12, volume dropped by 75%, but it isn't crackling or farting out or anything. Experience this. Are you sure I know this sounds dumb, but are you absolutely positive it's a speaker and that you didn't kind of like a tube isn't on its way out? So, big question. Hey, Chris, you're on your 10. Dude, with great pleasure. Have a great night. And we got to chat about lights and that other track thing, which we got to chat. It's been a kind of a crazy week, so I need to see how much buffer I actually have in my buffer. Okay. Thanks for saying bye. Appreciate it. Okay, let's see here. We're going to go for another 15 minutes here, but I really appreciate everybody hanging out. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody? Let me just head over to YouTube, see if anybody is putting some. All right, thanks, guys. Got any questions? All right, so, well, the good news is that people are still here, and so I guess cool. Thanks, Chris. Whatever it is that I'm saying seems to be interesting enough that people are like, I got nothing better to do. I didn't mean to sound like that. Okay, so the teaching thing. I didn't necessarily see how many people are teaching, but my guess is that there's a percentage of you guys that are doing that. The idea is that getting this format, I think, the other idea that I had for tonight's show was about making a living in kind of the modern music business, because it doesn't look, especially now, anything that it looked like it did 5 years ago. And I think within the framework of that, I tell you what, for the people that are still here, first of all, if you can, if you got a sec, text me. Okay, there we go. Thanks, Dan. Oh, hey, what's going on, Happy? Amp modeling like the Axe effects. Okay, hang on. So, all right, good. We got a couple of comments and questions here. All right. Jeff tried multiple heads through the cab, and I had the same issue, but I'm not positive. The interesting, so the speaker thing, generally when a speaker is toast, it sounds and smells like toast, or at least it sounds like toast. If it's a decrease in volume, and that's all it is, maybe you can try just pulling all the wiring. Quite often they've got the little, I don't know what they're I'll call them bibs, but you kind of the fitted thing that fits around the connectors on the speaker. Maybe try pulling the bibs out, maybe spraying some contact cleaner and putting it back on there. But that would be it's really strange that if it's just a 25% decrease in volume. I mean, I guess it could happen. I've never had that happen. I haven't blown a speaker since I blew the speaker and the amp of my Vibrachamp by plugging a Vox amp into the front end. Bad idea. I was in 8th grade. Still a bad idea, even for an 8th grader. Sorry. So Happy, hi, how are you? Pleasure to see you again, that is. I love modeling. So one of the things I mentioned before was the idea of, okay, I would love to do a video and where I bring the Wazoo Tube amp expander, the aux, and the Captor X into a common video and kind of go, here are the things that each of these do well. And these are the reasons why I would buy each one of these units. And do the same thing with Helix, Kemper, and Axe FX. They are all, they're similar, but they're different. I think modeling stuff is phenomenal. Excuse me. I love it. I love the fact that because we're in the middle of this Helix training, we're kind of wrapping the last bit of this up because the actual thing goes live on Friday, which is awesome. So we've been in Helix. Well, the thing, it's basically like a Bradshaw system with virtual rigs inside of it that you can control from the face of this thing. I mean, they kind of went off. It's so well thought out in terms of like as an interface that you interact with. Nobody has brought that type of experience to your feet and consistently kind of kept doing cool updates the way that Eric Klein and the team at Line 6 have done that. And I'm not saying that it's better than the others. It's just that particular piece of like the functionality of being able to jump into from the face of the unit into pedal board mode and then in turn or slot mode, I should say, and then in turn being able to edit any one of the pieces of gear and have access to the parameters, including the amp, and be able to bring something like the drive up or down, literally on the fly. It's just, with your feet, while you're sitting there playing. It's just like they just really kind of just lot of brain power. Same thing, one of the experiences that I had, Billy Hollerdale, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, was one of the instructors at the Tom Morello Guitar Camp. And I got a chance to watch one of his sections, and he had this delay on his Axe effects, and the delay, all of us who are delay fanatics, there are certain things that delays do and certain things that they don't do. And one of the things that they traditionally don't do is they just, if you imagine a delay trail that was what started here and kept going and kept going and kept going and ended about there. Hey, what's going on, Russ? Take it you got my text, right? But each delay was that perfect amount quieter than the previous one. But sonically, it was kind of a slightly lo-fi delay. But instead, and I'm sure that you could easily have made it do the curve of what happens, with kind of like an analog bucket brigade, where each one gets a little dirtier and dirtier. These were dirty but pristine simultaneously, just kind of with this perfect tail. I have never heard anything like that. And I was just like, the fidelity of that sound was just shocking. I mean, and there are lots of guys who make amazing sounds with the Axe effects, but that particular sound, I was like, it was just one of those things because I've got, I don't know, 40 delay boxes here between racks and pedals easily. I guess you could say I've got a bit of a problem, but I love delay, and each one of them has its own unique little thing. Like, the Memory Man's got a little kind of almost a little metallic ping to it, but then the modulation is just like to die for. The STE 3000. Again, it's got a little bit of a slightly metallic sound to the delay, but not the same ping that you get with the Memory Man. The Eventide stuff has its own sound. Apparently what I didn't know, and I learned this from Jeff Slinglove, is the Boss stuff is actually kind of all intended to sound like the SD 3000, which I think is really cool. The Ibanez analog guy, the Chandler tube, what is no? It's their faux tape echo, and then the Wampler stuff. It's just like, I love delay, and they all sound different. And they all do something very cool, very, 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 very cool. So, on the modeling side, I think it's all great. I think amp modeling is amazing. I think one of the things that it's a funny aside, but one of my favorite things is to come back into a room where I've got some volume going, and I've been using a modeler, but the room isn't 10 degrees hotter when you come back in, or you don't feel guilty because you forgot to put the amp on standby, or then left it on standby and came back the next morning. You're like, oops. We've all done that if we got tube amps. You're just like, man, I meant to, but And it's just kind of one of those things like, how is it that good? I mean, it's just like, it's really kind of shocking. Same thing with, again, the Tone Master Deluxe Reverb. It's effectively a modeling device, and it's just unreal. It's, the only thing better than one of them would be two, and I've only got one. Bummer. What's going on, Christian? How you doing, man? Okay. Let's see. Okay. AxeFX 3, still working through it. The thing about all this modeling gear is that you can get inundated with kind of all the layers of stuff. I remember when Rocktron was the thing. What was the main delay or the multi-effect? What was that? Gone. But it was delay and reverb, IntelliFX. There we go. But I just remember the menu system on that thing is like, was you just kind of kept having to go in and down, then back, then over and in and down, and so like there was a thing that would happen that I think in each one of the blocks there was a mix and then there was a level. And so if you weren't careful, you'd think of the level as being the level of the effect, not the level of the summed effect with the blended with the direct signal. And so you'd kind of be down in there, and it's just like, it just for me was a very clumsy experience. But the point being is that the depth of this stuff, you just want to be thinking of it. It's just like it's a guitar rig that's virtual, right? So you kind of go, well, what would I do with the amp? And the thing that impressed me about the AxeFX, when I spent a bunch of time there the last time, was a speaker drive. What they've, one of the things that they've really nailed brilliantly is the way that you manipulate a speaker and a cabinet and the power amp section of the amplifier, and the fact that also the proximity of where you place the microphone and the relationship to the speaker. If you spend a lot of time miking tube amps and playing through tube amps, which I have in this room, you really develop a sense about it. And ultimately, you kind of feel the sound in the way that it reverberates, honestly, in your solar plexus, and you go, I'm going to use that mic and I'm going to place it there. And it's not because you go, oh, I know that I'm going to use this particular technique on the mic. It's literally, you just get used to feeling the sound hit your chest and kind of go, oh, I know what I need to capture that. And it's a funny thing, but it's just kind of, yeah, IntelliFX, there we go. It's just one of those things, and you just get a sense for it. The speaker modeling part of that and the microphone part of that is brilliantly done and clearly done by somebody who really understands that relationship between speakers and microphones and amps and volume. Because a big part of the equation, just kind of, Jeff will tell you, is that speaker, the way the speaker responds to the amplifier. A speaker is doing something different at a quiet volume than it's doing at a loud volume. And part of what you want to do is sometimes get that speaker moving some. Not necessarily a whole bunch, but some. A Vintage 30 loosens up a little bit. And I actually am a fan of a Vintage 30. But it just gets a little warmer when you start pushing the seams a little bit. At least that's been my experience. And it's one of the things I love about it. Love it a lot. Hodge, you still there? Got any questions? Michael Hodge, come home. Yeah, literally, Michael plays in front of like 1 million people a week. It's crazy. Crazy. All right. Let's see here. All right, we're getting close to closing time. So, first of all, I just want to say thank you for everybody that's been hanging out. This has been a lot of fun. I obviously am more than madly passionate about this, but the real privilege is kind of be able to spend all this time. I kind of sometimes feel like an investigative reporter because I'm gathering all this stuff and I'm constantly looking for information. But it's neat to know that there are people that are what's going on, Quattro? Stephen, Russ, you guys already saw it. There we go. I'm kind of trying to gather this stuff because I want to just have enough depth of field such that I don't feel like this stuff. Appreciate it, Tom. Thank you. that I don't feel that it's bigger than I am. Happy, have a great one. Great to see you again. Cheers. Please do give him my best. And it's easy to feel that this stuff is bigger than you, because there's so much to know. But the great thing is that I spend a lot of hours kind of combing YouTube trying to understand it, because not a lot of this is framed from a guitar player's perspective. So the great thing is we're all on a journey together. And so it's I get a chance to make it a little bit of a mission, if I'm really honest, and B, it's something that I love doing anyway. So the ability to kind of do it together is really, really cool. And the neat thing is that I think we're at a point in time where we're going to get a chance to push this envelope a little bit. So one of the kind of the silver linings is that if the people that are kind of tuning in are kind of the people that really start jumping on the technology, and really kind of pushing that envelope, then people get a chance to see what we can be doing on this platform. And I think that's really exciting. The lighting, the idea is you want to create something that is some sort of a virtual stage that hopefully doesn't look cheesy. Again, this whole green screen thing is absolutely huge, and the idea of different machine. I don't have that. Eric, what's going on? We're just about to sign off. Well, two Erics. In any case, this has been just a great pleasure. I just want to thank everybody for hanging out. Wish you a great night. We'll be back next week. And just want to wish you the best. Hey, look, if you think the people that are in your feed would benefit from this, I will invite you to go ahead and share it, because that helps me out. I'm trying to grow this thing, and it helps when people share it. So thank you very much. The bubbles of hearts and whatever, the thumbs ups. So in any case, look, this has been a real pleasure, and it's just great to be able to have something. It's kind of like the guitar, but amplified with all this other stuff wrapped around it. So to conclude what I was saying before, don't get overwhelmed with this, because we're on a journey together. So kind of my gig, my part of this is to kind of make sense of enough of the technology and put together a definitive list of stuff that I think this is specifically good for the applications that we're doing, and this is why, such that it's, instead of like you're kind of going out onto YouTube like I do and having to go, holy cow, there's so much information out there. Hopefully we can make this journey a little bit easier together. All right, awesome. Thanks so much. Have a great night. This has been a lot of fun. And you take care, and I'll see you next week. And with that, we said good night. Thanks again.